if you have not liked this, please like this, go and share this, because we're talking about pure commentator gold right here, y'all. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get it nowhere else except one place, the Late Night Hype. Hey, great content. Love it. Share, like, subscribe, and grow this thing.
Remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. For an unforgettable experience. Get ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Get hype.
Chip. What's going on, Cowboys universe? Welcome to another episode of the Late Night Hype. We back. We had a little week hiatus, but we are back stronger than ever with a special guest in the building who we'll introduce here in a quick second. But gentlemen, are y'all ready?
Let's go.
Come on. AKD, we like to bring it in with a little bit of energy. That's what I tell everybody.
I like it.
That's right, y'all. That is the voice of the Cowboys Wire managing editor, KD Drummond. How are you, sir?
I'm good, fellas. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I'm feeling really blessed to be here with y'all. Getting ready to turn the corner on this off season. We got some things they're still on the horizon, but they're coming closer. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a football season this year, and I'm looking forward to another year covering the Cowboys.
Positive vibes.
Yeah, positive. Yeah, hell yeah.
Positivity in the air, Lord, help us now.
What's up, Law Nation? Big Game James.
man.
How y'all doing, man?
Man, I'm faded, fine like wine. I'm getting this thing going one way or another. Let's go, baby.
I'm Tiger faded. I'm faded. Just listen to that song. I'm faded.
Faded.
Anybody else out there faded? We welcome it. Okay, we're cool.
Yeah,
we cool.
we faded.
We faded.
You faded?
Everybody
We
welcome.
faded.
Except for SI.com. They're not welcome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they ain't welcome. And then with TMZ.
Shots.
Hey, man. Real quick before we get into all the goods, man. It's just real quick with the faded stuff. Like, I mean, I know that's fluff, and I know you guys don't really try to cover too much of that stuff, but how wonky was that, man?
Man, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. You know, it's one of those things because y'all know me. Anybody that follows me on Twitter knows that I'm always pro player. Anytime it comes to management versus player, I'm always going to be on the player side. That's just because how I'm built, and I'm all about privacy when it comes to, you know, what a player does off the field. I don't know these dudes. I don't think that a lot of people that talk about these dudes know them very well in order to talk about them. I think a lot of people take liberties when it comes to athletes just because you watch them on TV or because you pay money to go see them in the stadium and, you know, you get in all their business. But that was pretty crazy that
Wow.
ended up being put out there, you know, it just into the Twitter sphere, into the internet, in the interwebs, as I used to call it. He
Like that one.
You know what it reminds me of, KD? You ever see American Pie, the first one?
Yes.
Remember when he left the webcam on when he was watching
Yes.
it? That's
Yes.
what it reminds me.
Yes.
It's man, I forgot to turn it on.
And you know, whatever you do to get yourself through the day, recreationally, personally, mentally, whatever you do, that's your business, you know, and I don't really think it's something that, you know, needs to be discussed on the level that it gets discussed, especially with the way laws are changing, and even before laws were stupid, you know what I'm saying, as far as how that was concerned. But yeah, that was pretty wild to see all of that just kind of unfold over the last several days, man. It was pretty wild to see.
Indeed.
Well, they love to see anything with Zeke, any kind of controversy. You be thinking that, like, come on, Zeke. It's like he got to be super on point, dog, because you do one tiny little thing, it's coming.
And you know, the weird thing is Zeke gets the national treatment that a quarterback gets.
Right.
You know, that's normally reserved for if a quarterback steps on the crack on the sidewalk, you talk about somebody mama back breaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's normally any little thing the quarterback does. That gets applied to Zeke. And it's really weird to see, especially because it comes from people that don't like running backs. You know, you want to get into that whole running backs don't matter, but you know, they matter enough that y'all care about every single thing that this man does. So, you know, he had a pretty rough week when it came to media and well, not media, but things getting exposed about him. We know about the lawsuit with the pool, and his lawyer said that the person was trespassing. I guess, you know, all that went along with that. But, you know, the brother seems to always be in the thick of things, and you just kind of wonder why it's always about him. And other people seem to get passes that he doesn't get, you know? It's really interesting to see. And I don't know. I don't want to speculate on why, but.
Well, we know one of the biggest reasons why, and it's that big, shiny blue thing shaped like a star that's on his helmet. You know, you know, if he played for the Jaguars, nobody would care.
Yeah,
that's part of it. That's part of it, and I think, but again, like Dak doesn't get that kind of scrutiny, and that's
no other
running
back.
Right?
Like they wait for him.
Yeah,
exactly. No other running back gets the scrutiny that he gets. And the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys doesn't get the scrutiny that he gets. It just seems to be one of those things that when he came out, and you know, obviously the accusations that he was never prosecuted for, and the NFL investigator said, I don't believe this woman to be credible for us to pursue anything.
That was annoying.
That's what
But-
we really need to find. We need to find Kia Roberts, man. She don't talk much.
Hey,
right?
look, hey,
Stand up.
hey, yes, please, seriously, because everything has stemmed from those accusations.
Right.
Everything that he's dealt with has basically been that cast him in a bad light. So everything else that happened. Now, I'm not saying that the brother hasn't done anything worthy of being talked about, but the lingering effect of everything he does, it's like, I mean, people just don't like the dude, and by all accounts, he seems like a really good dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like, and you're just sitting here watching and like, why does everybody seem to have it out for this dude? But sometimes that's people's burdens to bear. And fortunately, the Cowboys did the smart thing. They paid him money. I know I'm in the minority of people that talk about, salary cap and contracts and all that does think that Ezekiel is a far better, more consistent, more reliable running back than all of the other ones that he's compared with. I think he is the only one that is worth the money. For the most part, I do believe that running backs probably don't need to get paid, but he is consistently in the top 3 or 4 running backs every year that he's been in the league. Even the year that he was suspended for 6 games on a per game basis, he was still one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the league. He's dependable. He hasn't missed games for injury. The only real risk that you have with him is if he is going to run afoul of the NFL and get suspended again. But if a player's suspended, they don't get paid, and you get that money back on the salary cap. So it's like a wholly different thing. If you have a running back that has injury concerns and you pay him a lot of money, then that's dumb, because if they get injured, you still pay him. The Cowboys ended up paying Sean Lee like over $11 million worth of salary for games that he never played in over the course of his career. $11 million they paid to Sean Lee based on salary that for games that he never played. The seasons that he missed, the games in each year he missed, those are right. Yeah, 11 million that you know what I'm saying. Now, obviously, you couldn't have given it to somebody else. You would have rather have had Sean Lee playing those games. But the fact still remains that if Ezekiel were to get suspended, the Cowboys then get a refund, basically. They don't have to pay him. They get some of the signing bonus back that they paid him, and they get the money back on their cap. So signing him to that contract was much smarter than signing somebody that's missed games. And you see the rest of the top guys, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, all of those guys had injury concerns of a pretty significant level before they got paid. Ezekiel didn't have any of that. So that's why I always say that he deserved the money more than anybody else. So fortunately, he got paid. And if you got, that many millions of dollars, screw what everybody else is talking about. To be real, you get $90 million. I really don't care what you say. So,
well, let me ask you this though, and let me talk about the hidden money that he didn't get paid. Can you make speculation for the nation on how much money he lost because of the allegations happened his first year and the second year? How much money? Because we don't see Ezekiel Elliott on commercials, right?
Right.
We don't see Ezekiel Elliott doing these quick deals around Dallas area.
Right. Now, see, that circles back around that if he didn't get in trouble, if he didn't run afoul of the NFL shield, I'll call it that, because I can't even say he got in trouble. If he didn't run sideways of the NFL shield, I think that he would have had those big time endorsements, because he is that kind of star attraction. There's just something about that guy, the same way all of the negative attention seems to draw to him. If he didn't have that first domino effect that kind of led to all of that, I think he could have turned that into a positive spin. And I think there could have been a lot of endorsements in, national programs that he didn't end up getting because of that. He probably could have been the famous running back. And that's something that's kind of been phased out over the course. We really haven't had that many big time star running backs, even, as far as outside of the football world. You have stars, that we've had a myriad number of stars that play running back, but actually that could capitalize on that and get the big time endorsements. I think he could have done that, but yeah, that was stolen away from him. And I'll reserve judgment on whether or not the person who accused him wanted to put that kind of damage to him, but that was the effect of the accusation that was levied against him.
Yeah, see, here's my thing about the Zeke getting paid thing. I think he definitely deserves it. I just am a little bit upset that it came a couple years before it needed to, because I 2 years out, brother. I mean, we could have paid Dak with that, in my opinion, and could have been done with this whole thing, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Well, I mean, we can go there, because I mean they could still pay Dak now. I mean, they're paying him $31.4 million on the salary cap right now, as opposed to, a much lower figure if they had given him, if he had a long-term contract. And we all know the signing bonus. You give a guy a big signing bonus, it's spread out evenly over the first 5 years of the deal, or 4 years in the case of what Prescott is trying to get. So you give him a big signing bonus, it gets spread out over the cap. And that basically you can push off a major cap hit for 1 or 2 years, depending on how you deliver the rest of the contract, the rest of the years of the contract. So giving Ezekiel the money early really didn't preclude them from paying Dak. They've paid other people, along the way. They paid DeMarcus Lawrence, they paid La'el Collins, they paid Jaylon Smith. They paid Jaylon Smith early.
Yeah.
If you're going to complain about paying somebody early, for me, it would have been Jaylon Smith. Everybody who follows me know that I like Jaylon. I like the game that he brings, but I still worry about his long-term viability. I still worry about him being able to cover. I think he's much better coming downhill than going backwards. And they paid him. They paid him, a pretty significant chunk of change. Now, the Cowboys are always smart about how they structure deals. That's the one thing I will never take away from them. They structure deals in a way that, defers some costs. And basically what they did with Smith was they knew that he had the year remaining, and then the restricted free agency year that was going to be on top of that. So they kind of structured the money as far as his guaranteed to basically cover that. And if things go absolutely sideways, they have ways to get out of that contract.
Which they usually do.
Yeah, which
I mean, it's pretty much with all of them. D-Law,
they usually can get out.
Guys, they
but my thing,
have
KD,
out after about 3 years.
With Zeke getting paid when he got paid, I love this analogy that Boss Cowboy used. It's like they paid the electric bill before they paid the mortgage. You know what I mean? Like the house right now, the mortgage is Dak. That's your future. The electric bill, you ain't got no house, and the electric bill don't matter. So why are we playing this game with Dak? We just get that out the way and worry about Zeke. In my opinion, I would have if Zeke wants to sit out, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think we'd have been just fine playing against Miami and the Giants with Tony Pollard for those first few weeks.
Let's look at it this way. When Ezekiel Elliott signed his contract, he was what was that, right before training camp?
Yeah, literally the week before.
Right.
When Zeke before the season.
Right. Week before the season. Mm-hmm. They could have signed Dak Prescott in all of that time.
Yeah, I agree.
They didn't have to wait to see what was going to happen with Ezekiel Elliott in order to pay Dak Prescott. They chose not to.
Well, let me ask you this though, KD. Was that a lot of smoke and mirrors when they said they offered him that $35 million contract, and then his agent kind of like, well, let's see what we do against the Miami. Let's see what we do against this Washington team, whatever the first few games. And then they kind of like said, nah, the price tag and went up. Is that the true accurate story, or just a lot of smoke and mirrors? They didn't really give him a contract.
I don't like to speculate on that kind of stuff, because my lane that I drive in is more so analysis as opposed to being an insider. So I don't like to speculate on whether or not an offer was made. Yeah. We've heard the reports that they offered him somewhere in the $30 million range, and that it was rejected. What we don't know, it's easy to talk about $30 million, but what we don't know is how much at the time was guaranteed, how much they, were front loaded, how much was back ended. All of those sorts of things are very significant when it comes to negotiating a contract. You can talk about the average annual value all you want to. That's the easy number for people to digest. Oh, they're talking about paying Dak $35 million a year. But if they're offering $20 million less guaranteed than what Carson Wentz got, that's not a good contract. You know what I'm saying? So all of those things start to roll into. So I really don't know what they offered Dak besides the report that it was $30 million that they offered in September. But I don't know the structure of it, and I don't know if they were insisting on it being 6 years. We don't know. We don't know those sorts of things. Prescott is very smart. His agent Todd France is very smart. They know what's going to happen with the salary cap. This is pre-COVID. COVID changes everything. But pre-COVID, they knew that the salary cap was going to jump. I wrote an article as part of my manifesto series in the offseason talking about what happened with the NBA the last time that they renegotiated their TV contracts. And you see players in the NBA that are making $40 million a year. Like, dude, like, I mean, there's people that you've never heard of. Like, I mean,
Mike Conley. He ate
Batum, Nick Batum. Yeah.
Oh,
crazy.
There's people that you've literally never heard of making $18 million a year in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's right. Right. And he's a spot up shooter. So give him $18 million. Like that man can't even run. He can't even run backwards. You know what I'm saying? He can't play no defense, but $18 million. So that's what's about to happen to the NFL, or at least was before COVID hit. So everybody that saw what happened with the NBA and the exploding salaries knows that the NFL is going to turn around and do the same thing. So Dak and his agent want the short-term deal. They're like, okay, we're ready to get paid. We've been underpaid since day one. Jared Goff, over the first 4 years of their career, Jared Goff has made $40 million more than Dak Prescott. Ooh, Carson Wentz has made $30 million more than Dak Prescott over the first 4 years of their career. And you're telling me that man don't deserve no back pay?
Oh yeah,
you're telling me he don't deserve no back pay for that? So of course he's like, I can't get back pay. I'm not gonna zoom past Russell Wilson or any of these guys. But if I'm going to sign this deal, you're going to pay me, a number that's going to fit what the salary cap is going to look like at the end of my contract. If you want to add that fourth year or whatever the case may be, the fifth year that Dallas so desperately wants to do, it's going to have to be at a ridiculous sum of money because everybody knows where the cap is going to be. $40 million a year for the quarterback by the time Dak Prescott ends his next contract is going to be nothing. It's going to be the standard for people, for the mid-level guys are going to be getting near $40 million at that point. The number 8, 9, 10 quarterback in the league, not necessarily a top 5 like what Dak is. So of course he wants to go ahead and guarantee that he's going to get that money because he's been shortchanged this entire time. And don't talk to me about, he's a quarterback of the Cowboys. He has all of these endorsements.
I hate that.
He's making 10.
I don't want to hear that damn endorsement
what is that?
shit. I don't want to hear that
what is
shit.
That?
I don't want to hear that
what
shit.
What is that? Anything that you make off the field is for you. That I don't care if the Cowboys make more money because they're the Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? Right. So how are you going to say that the players don't deserve to make any more money because they get the endorsement deals because of the Cowboys? The Cowboys make more money
and
because
KD,
of the Cowboys.
You know who didn't help who didn't help out the players with that, and it's Jaylon. You were just talking about it. Jaylon Smith at the time he signed his contract, one of the first few things he said was, "Man, one of the main reasons why I signed because I want to get in business with Jerry Jones." He bought that snake oil pitch that Jerry sold him. Hey man, if you take this deal, you'll make an extra 25, 30 million off the field over the length of this contract. He bought it, and the first thing he said was, "I want to work on my business, and this is the person I want to work on it with." Come on, dog.
All the fans heard it and said, "Hey,
that's not the reality."
And they expect it. And they expect it from everybody else. The weirdest thing, the weirdest thing that I see is how fans side with ownership.
You reading my mind because KD, I was just about to go there.
We don't even like ownership at our own damn jobs.
Dog.
We be hating management, but now we all of a sudden we want to be like, no.
Take a discount.
You make means less.
Break it down, KD, because we off air. We was talking about this. Let's go ahead and pull the scalp out. Let's go ahead and pour alcohol on his wound to let everybody know how these owners are just getting away with murder, basically. Just break it down, KD.
Listen. The owners have pulled the wool over the eyes of the fans for so long. They charge all these ridiculous costs, and it's in the fans' head. I pay so much for tickets that you guys should take less in order to play a game. That's basically what people think. You guys should take less so that they charge me. The owners are going to keep raising those prices because y'all keep paying. If the stadiums didn't fill up, the owners wouldn't keep raising the prices on tickets and concessions and all of that kind of thing. That they do that because they can get the money out of the fans. In turn, the players make more money because it's contracted that the salary cap is a portion of revenue. It doesn't work in the reverse. It's not that the owners charge more money because they have to pay more players. The owners charge more money, and now they have to pay players higher salaries because it's a function of how much money the owners bring in. But the fans blame the players, and there's a whole myriad of reasons that they do that. Who they see, what they see in the players when they look at them, all of those things tend to be factors in people pocket watching players and not worrying about the owners. It's some weird thing about capitalism that everybody thinks that the person at the top of the food chain is worthy of making as much money as possible, and nobody else should be able to capitalize on their own earning potential. It's a very weird dynamic, and we're talking about people that are making like $16 an hour and complaining about their life, and then turning around and seeing another person and saying you shouldn't be maximizing your value. If you were one of the top 500, 3,000 people of your profession. I'm not just talking about in your company, because some people aren't even the top 500 in their company and they're having these complaints. But if you have the talent of what these NFL players do, there is nobody in the world that can do what they do. It's literally, 50 people per team. Right. 50, call it 60 people per team, and then you have 32 franchises. So you're talking about, roughly about 2,000 players on a given year that are in the league, that are capable of doing what these dudes do. Of course, they deserve to get as much money as possible. The physical toll that is taken out of their body, the short amount of time that they have to earn. If you're going to be a guy that's worth more than the minimum salary, if you're going to be a guy that's going to be in the league for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and really earn your stripes, get as much money as possible, because the owner, no matter what you say, is taking a bigger percentage of what you're worth as an individual player. Each individual player, the owner is taking a much higher percentage just for being able to pay you. And that's really what it comes down to. You own a team because you have money. It's not necessarily that you're good at it or anything. Like the Cowboys haven't won anything in 30 years. So it's obviously not that Jerry Jones is a great, great football man. They haven't won. He's a great marketer, but he's not a great football man, because the proof is in the pudding. They haven't won. But these individual players are great, and they deserve to make as much money as they possibly can. And for people to side with the guy that funds it as opposed to the guys that do it, it's a weird dynamic to me. It's really weird.
Super weird. Hey, let me ask you this quick, KD. Since you were talking about that, we always keep hearing, I be hearing, so is Dak the Black Kirk Cousins?
Oh my God! Don't. How dare you even?
I'll just throw it out there. Why not?
I can't believe
Look, I mean,
look, if I
oh man, you know what?
I can't.
That's my black cousin.
Look,
that's from a Texan fan. A Texan fan comes on our streams, okay, all the time, and he talks this mess about Dak being the Black Kirk Cousins. His name is Eastside Harold.
Eastside.
Okay. Well, look, shout out to Eastside, because you just cracked me up, man. He's not the Black Kirk Cousins. I don't like Kirk Cousins, man. If you
feel me, I know,
but
everybody's looking at that deal, though. You feel me?
He won only 4 primetime games, I believe, 4 or 5.
Man,
and they were recent. And they were recent. See, listen, Kirk. Yeah. I call Kirk Cousins Kirk Grossman for the entire time that he was in Washington. He was the most. Listen, he was the most overrated dude, and everybody just kept talking about how great this guy was and his arm talent and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, but the dude can't win. He can't win. And that's never been Dak's problem. Dak has never finished below 500 in his career. He's, this was the worst season. And we all know that 2019 wasn't a normal season. It definitely wasn't Dak's fault. How the Cowboys looked. They were playing for a lame duck coach. Everybody knew that he was a lame duck coach. The whole staff was on notice. They lost their locker room leader when Tyron Crawford got injured. The defense went in disarray. We hear the stories all the time. I know Michael Irvin talks about it all the time. How the hell could
Michael Bennett
come into the locker room and take control? Now, if y'all want to really talk, I mean, that's an indictment on DeMarcus Lawrence and Jalen Smith, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, KD.
We already talked. We've been talking about that, KD, especially Jalen Smith.
Tell me if I'm wrong right now.
Hey, leave my dog D-Law alone.
Hold on.
Hey,
D-Law's not a man. Listen, I talked about it on my other show. D-Law not a leader.
D-Law and Michael Bennett is in the same position group, dog. You know what I'm saying? That D-line group is in the same room. So if Michael Bennett is speaking up, he's speaking up over Tank.
Doesn't it feel like McCoy is doing the same thing? Gerald McCoy seems like the leader right now on that D-line. I mean, granted, it's all talk right now, but it just feels that way. And we hear one of McCoy's strengths is being a leader in that locker room. And I think he's going to come in and he's going to take over that leadership role for Tyron, because a lot of people say, hey, man, Tyron's going to stick around because he's a leader. Well, do you really need him if you got McCoy for that role? I mean, so, there's other players out there you can replace Tyron with, and I think we're going to talk about one here in a quick second.
I think I've been one of the biggest advocates. It was funny, back when I first started writing, obviously I was with BTB at first, and then I switched over to Cowboys HQ, helped set that website up and ran with it until I moved on to the USA Today network with Cowboys Wire.
Congratulations, by the way, man. You come up.
Beastie.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate
your writings is off the hook.
Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. it's really surreal to have done the journey that I have, going from, you know, the fan post at BTB. I don't know if, you know,
I've been in the fan post. I've done fan posting.
Listen, that's where I started. I started back in 2010, the beginning of the season. I was doing a weekly fan post where I ran a contest called KDP's 10 for 10, where I basically, it was basically like a gambling contest. You had to pick 10 of the NFL games on the slate, and however many you got right for the week, that was your total. And it was like a season-long contest, and I was doing giveaways and all that kind of stuff. And that led me to be on the front page. So literally a contest. I used to have a beautiful girl of the week. I used to have the 10 for 10 contest, and then I would have a summary of the weekly Cowboys game. That was my column that I did every week. I did that same column, and then after about 11 weeks, the managing editor of BTB was like, "You want to write on the front page?" Hell yeah, I want to write on the front page.
Right.
So basically that led me to a place where I started working with Mike Fisher on Cowboys HQ. We ran that site together. He tapped me up and he was like, you know, "Hey, I'm getting ready to run this site for this network. Would you be my lead writer?" Yeah, I'll do that. And you know, offer me a little bit of change. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. So you know, we started doing that. But, you know, Fish had the connections with the Cowboys. So when I would start diving into the salary cap, he would take my information and run it past members of the front office. You know, there were a handful of people. So I was actually getting feedback on the things that I was saying about, this is a good salary, this is a bad salary, this is a good way to handle this sort of thing. I was getting feedback from people in the organization through Fish.
Nice.
So when they signed, when Tyron Crawford was up for his deal, and I wrote a lengthy article and I said, this dude is worth $4.5 million a year, I got laughed at. Fish told me, he came back, he's like, "Man, I told them your thing," and they laughed. They said, "There's no possible way that he's gonna sign for that." I said, "Yeah, but that's what he's worth." And then he came, and then he came out and he was like a 3-sack guy, 3-sack a year guy, 4-sack a year guy.
Yeah.
Now he's a great leader, but I'm paying for production. You know, as far as the contract that they signed him to a hefty contract, and he's never lived up to that contract until 2018. 2018 was Crawford's best year.
Yep.
And he had 5
sacks.
Exactly. He had 5.5 sacks. Exactly, career high. But you could really see his value when you broke. Yeah, it wasn't just the numbers, because sacks are overrated in general. But
he does a lot. He does little things.
He does all the little things, and you saw the way that he won and was commanding double teams, and he was a big reason why Tank had the year that he had, because Crawford was such a force moving up and down the line. But he just, the contract never fit his production, even if you're going beyond just the stats and looking at the, you know, the other thing that he did. It just didn't match what it was. But you know, he's a great dude. He was a locker room leader. Then he had the weird year where he got arrested for the brawl, and then his hip surgeries and all that. And it just, but you saw what happened. The defense just, they were rudderless. I guess that's the best way. Yeah, exactly. They were rudderless without him. So I think losing him, the Cowboys took the offseason and they said, let's get another leader in here for the defensive line. Hence looking for guys like Gerald McCoy to make sure that they were covered in case Crawford was going to get cut. And I believe the reports came out that they talked to him about a pay reduction. Like, you know, if you're going to stick around for this last year, but it never happened because they didn't need to. They still have $11 million worth of salary cap space. So I think that's still in their back pocket. If they didn't have the offseason that they did, where they were able to get the bargains on guys, like, not really bargains, but get quality players that they hope can achieve a little bit better than what they did last year in terms of Dontari Poe and Gerald McCoy, who they didn't have bad years with Carolina, but I mean, they were the Carolina DTs, and Carolina's defense really wasn't that good. So there's still a little bit of buyer beware, you know, with those guys. But
individually, they were good.
Yeah.
Individually, they were good, but could you wrap an entire team around them as far as being the focal point of what your defense is trying to do? Exactly.
KD, is it enough though? Is it enough? Would you just lock him out of the house and say, okay, you gone, I'm gonna go send this money over to Everson Griffin or the Javion Clowney? Would you just go ahead and do that and wash your hands with it and be done with Tyron TC Crawford?
I would for Griffin, but not for Clowney. I would for Griffin.
Griffin's my guy, but
on that.
Yeah.
But go. But
is
go
it
ahead.
because
Break
of
it
the
down
injury?
why,
Is it because of the injury issues with Clowney, or it just?
It's part of it.
I just feel
it's
like
part of
he's
it.
a little. I'm not saying he's overrated, but for what everybody's hyping him, you get what I'm saying? Just like Skywalker said, me and him talked about it. Everson Griffin is just more the well-rounded player as far as it just seems like he's more well-rounded all the way around.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
I think he's a better pass rusher too.
He's a better pass rusher. And don't get me wrong, Clowney can defend the run. He's just an incredible athlete. So he can defend the run, but his motor and his injury history are things that just kind of, you know how some players just have something about them that it's just not catching.
Yeah,
that's kind of it with him. Like, you look at him and you break down each individual aspect of the game, and you're like, okay, well, he's good at that. He's good at that. He's extremely athletic. Why isn't it all put together?
Why isn't he dominant?
Why isn't he a 15 sack guy every single day?
Exactly.
So is it more to do like Randy Moss when he played for the Raiders and then he went to the Patriots and he saw the production, or is it just that this guy's just a bad apple? Clowney, because we see when I turn on the tape, I see more of him going against the run. He had 2 touchdowns last year, 3 forced fumbles, and 3
He's a
sacks.
good player.
That's solid.
He is a good player, but is he a spot star? And what I mean by spot star is they have good highlights. You can find 4 to 5 plays a game where you're like, okay, that's a bad man. But if you look at, are you watching the whole games and getting that same impression of him? Or if you watch the whole game and you're like, okay, well, this dude disappears outside of these 4 to 5 plays. And I don't know whether that's the case. I haven't studied Clowney's film, but there's just something about him that doesn't jump off the page, and his stats seem to prove it. You know, sacks on everything, but if you're a sack guy, eventually you're going to bubble up, right? Like, one of those years you're going to have a big sack year if you're a sack artist, right?
He was
But
a
that-
very
I don't
high
think he's
draft
that,
pick
though.
too.
Yeah, it was the first overall. So you are definitely drafting him to be a sack artist. And, you know, he had a career high 9.5 sacks before he went to Seattle and Houston, oppo of Watt. See, here's the thing. People get upset because he's not having these bomb years opposite of Watt. I think that's what it is. But when you do go watch Jadeveon Clowney, he funnels a lot of things inside. He's a top run defender. And here's one of the interesting stats I found out about him. D-Law was one of the top rated guys when it comes to ratio to being double teamed and having the pass rush win rate. Guess who else was in that top 5? Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's
he
true.
gets to the quarterback. He's just not finishing at this elite rate. But the reason why I like Clowney is I think he makes up for it elsewhere. But with that said, KD, I am with you. Everson Griffin is my guy. I've been champion for Everson Griffin this whole damn offseason. I cannot believe he's not signed. I think
it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. The guy is not only good against the run, he is great against the pass. He's a great pass rusher, man, whether it be through power strength, through hand placement. He's really good at getting to the quarterback. And anybody that plays opposite of D-Law, I think, is going to have a really good year. So I would love to go get him. So I'm with you. Everson Griffin, I'll take
And
it.
with y'all too on Everson Griffin.
I think the biggest thing when you're talking about, even with Griffin, just like you said, I think the consistency with Clowney, to me, I just feel like he runs hot and cold. And if you're trying to really get over the hump, you can't get a guy that you're talking about grabbing and he wants some money too to be hot and cold. And they feel like, in my opinion, that Crawford is going to be consistent for him and you can slide him in. That's why else he's still on the team, though. They got to feel that way. And you heard when Broadus was on there, they said they love him because he makes people accountable in the locker room.
No. The previous regime loved him. This is a whole
no sponsor.
no sponsors no more.
Yeah, the previous, but he's still on the squad at $9 million. So
because
obviously
no
somebody still
cut
like
him
him
right now. Remember that.
But here's the
July.
thing. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Here's the whole thing of how, and we can dovetail this into a whole nother part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 changes everything, dog.
Yeah.
If you can't get these guys in front of you to see how they work with everybody and to see their locker room dynamic, you can't cut the locker room leader. The only person that somebody can vouch for, the only person that anybody in the organization can vouch for as far as being a leader on that defensive line is Tyron Crawford. So how is the new coaching staff who hasn't worked with any of these guys, hasn't gotten them on the practice field, how can they come in there and make a sweeping change and get rid of him for a maybe? Just and basically it'd be for salary cap space? Because again, They have $11 million. You need $3 to $4 million to go into the season with to make sure that you can sign free agents in case of injury and all that kind of stuff. So $3 million of that, $11 million, that's off the table. So now you're dealing with $8 million. You have another $3.1 million that has to go towards your rookie your rookie salaries. They'll knock off the seven draft picks will knock off the bottom 7 guys on the top 51, the 53-man roster as far as salary cap is concerned. So you really need only about $3 million to sign those guys. So that leaves you at about $5 million right now that the Cowboys could go out and spend. The Cowboys have signed other people after they signed Worley. And, they signed other guys that you're just like, okay, that's a nice, interesting signing. Kennedy and Savion Smith. Yeah. And, these type of guys that they've signed, they're not necessarily difference makers, but they've used up money that the team could have used on another guy, on a more expensive guy, if that's the route that they wanted to take. But they ended up signing, guys like Alden Smith and the Reclamation Project and that sort of thing. But the Cowboys have the ability to do whatever they want to, but they have to be scared of messing with a dynamic when they don't have a chance to evaluate any of these guys.
Yeah.
You can't assume that Gerald McCoy is going to be the locker room leader if you can't get in the locker room. You just can't assume that he's going to mesh. What if McCoy and Tank, I'm just saying, I'm not even speculating, I'm just using it as an example. What if McCoy and Tank don't get along? Wow. And you need Tyron Crawford to bridge that gap? You know what I'm saying? So all of these types of things are part of locker room building that you can't get a grasp on. You can't put a finger on if you can't work with your team.
That's why I don't think there's a need to cut him right now. Like, it's pointless, unless you're literally going to go out there and go get a Clowney or a Griffin, but we know that's not the Cowboys style. Now, if we get into training camp, Clowney and Griffin are still out there, we get a couple injuries, they see, you know what, we don't need Tyron Crawford, then maybe they make that move. But as much as we want them to go get a guy like that, that's just not their style right now.
Right now it's not. But let me go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Katie, I was going to say my medical insider over here, Jay, he was saying that pretty much Griffin is a major medical situation with him. Just like you mentioned, that's what I was about to ask. Yeah. He said that basically, and he also have other treatment that the Cowboys will be reliable for if they sign him. So that is probably why they're waiting to push this thing out, because of those things.
That makes perfect sense. That's something that I was going to speculate on earlier, and I lost track of it when we were wondering why Griffin's not signed. It has to be something that's just not made public, as far as the reason why he hasn't latched on with another team. But let me put this bucket in y'all's ear when we're talking about things that you can do. Because Tyron Crawford barely played last year, they could easily convert his salary, which is $8 million base salary, into incentive-based. And say, if you're on the game day roster, we'll give you $1 million base salary, and for every game that you're on the game day roster for, you get another $500,000. So at the end of the year, he's still going to get his $8 million, but all of a sudden now 7 of that $8 million isn't on the cap right now. It actually gets added at the end of the year. So that's when I say the salary cap hell doesn't exist. The salary cap is just a tool for the owners. Yeah, it's a tool for the owners to tell the players that they can't pay them, because they can do whatever they want to. You convert Tyron Crawford to $1 million base and then call everything else incentive. You could easily create whatever room you need to sign in Everson Griffin. It might not be enough to sign Jadeveon Clowney, because I think he still wants $60 million a year, which I'd never pay that dude $60 million a year.
But word out there that Everson, he wanted Robert Quinn's money. That was the word. I don't know if it's still positive now, but that's just how it goes. He wanted Robert Quinn's money.
I think based on the fact that it's this late in the season, and if what you're saying about there being medical concerns is true, I think Griffin's going to have to come in around $7-8 million on like a 1-year deal. And if it gets to that point, you create the space. I don't care what you plan to do with Alden Smith and Randy Gregory.
Yeah, you
create the space to get that guy. Get that guy. Yeah. And then you just have a deep ass rotation and you go win. That's what it comes down to. You go win.
Hey, it's a 1-year deal. So, make it happen.
Yeah. And even better, you do that, and if he proves himself and if he's healthy, then you get the comp pick like you're going to get for Robert Quinn. So it's a win-win in all directions. You sign him for a mid-level type of deal, 1 year, then send him back out in free agency, and then you get the comp pick. So yeah, do it.
Do it. do it. Yo got fired.
I've been championing this
over
whole
here.
go win the thing now, man. And if you can get an Everson Griffin on basically 1 year, that he's a hump player in my opinion. He's a guy that can help get you over the hump, man.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I think so. And I think with man, COVID has just changed everything.
Man, it just messed up everything, dog.
The hope that I had for the Cowboys this season, I'm hella apprehensive right now because how do you implement a brand new coaching staff without seeing your team before training camp?
Especially defense.
Like you're changing everything. Like Rod Marinelli, and I remember you guys were talking about this with Hellman, a couple weeks ago. Rod Marinelli and his hatred of blitzing. Hatred, disdain, absolute disdain.
He said disdain.
What Mike Nolan is gonna do with these they came and they talked about calling one of the linebacker positions a designated pass rusher. That's beautiful to hear. You know what I'm saying? But how well will that be implemented if they don't have the all season to work with it? Now, I think Jalen's a pretty smart guy. If we're gonna pick Jalen as being the guy, everybody expects that to be his role, that he's gonna be the guy that comes forward because that's what he does best. He has pass rush ability. He's gonna fit that role. It's not gonna be Sean Lee. And we don't know what's gonna happen with Van Der Esch. Hopefully he's completely healthy and he's able to be what we hoped he was. Side note, I was watching the first game of the season last year against the Giants, and I saw a play where his neck, the very first game of the season, got shot back on a tackle. It was friendly fire. I think it was Jeff Heath. It might have been
the
Jeff
Giants.
Heath.
It was a pass, and they ran into each other. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive that's why we didn't see a good Leighton Van Der Esch all year.
Yeah.
Like very first week of the season. I think he kind of
played it off and didn't want to tell nobody.
Yeah.
And then he just couldn't take it no more.
And then he just couldn't take it no more. So if he's
Jeff Heath. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Listen.
He said that damn goat.
Listen. But if that was the case and the surgery truly fixed Van Der Esch, he's gonna have an all-pro season. If he's healthy, and the reason that we saw that downturn was because he was injured from week 1, then he's going to have an all-pro season this year. So I think we can depend on him roaming the field and doing that. And then you find a home for Jaylon and get him out of that middle linebacker role because
thank you.
Please, Lord, don't have him make no calls.
He can't run.
Listen, KD.
That leg is bad.
Even beyond that part of it, the physical part of it, I talked about it on my State of the Union, the linebacker show. I said, Jaylon, in my opinion, is not made to have that green dot on his head. He's a heat-seeking missile. Allow him to move forward, go see it, and go get it, and let LVE call the plays, call the audibles, get people in line. And that's no offense to Jaylon, but that's just not his game. His game is go see it and go. And I'm hoping.
Just bouncing off my bad, Sky.
Oh,
I didn't cut you off. I just want to just bouncing off that. I also believe that when you were talking about it yourself, and we have talked about the leadership in that building. I really don't believe a lot of people were following that leadership of Jaylon Smith.
Yeah.
I believe he self-proclaimed himself as a leader. If we watched last year, he was self-proclaiming himself as the new leader, as the defense. He proclaimed himself. But I didn't hear nobody else jumping behind Jaylon Smith and saying he was the leader.
Is that what Bennett was talking about when they were sitting there saying?
I'm just saying.
Hey, is that what Bennett was talking about, KD?
Look, there used to be a player, and I know you guys know this guy's name.
Yeah.
There used to be a player that tried to convince himself that he was a badass. Mo Claiborne used to kind of pretend, and you saw, you know what I'm saying? You know when you see a real dude and you see how they move,
Man.
And he used to try to build himself up to be
like,
that
I'm a
kind
beast.
of guy.
I'm a beast, and we're like, no, you're not.
Watch what happened when all of the Cowboys on defense had a big play last year. Who was also in the picture doing their dance with them?
Jaylon.
Yep.
Yo, KD.
Like, what is that?
You in my head,
like
man.
he used to move in. He did the swipe. The swipe is his. But when Quinn used to do his Cobra strike, and when D-Law used to pound it, like, dude, get your own thing. Let that man have his moment. Come on, like, let that man have his moment. You're a good player.
You know who Jaylon is?
But
with that, Jaylon is the girlfriend on draft day. When the player get drafted,
He tried to grab the phone,
and the girlfriend tried to
give me that.
This is the one where the mama said, "Girl, get up off my son and let him have his moment."
Listen.
That's Jaylon, fam.
Oh my God.
Hey, look.
Shout out to
Hey.
Jaylon, though.
First of all, shout out to that mama, because between her and CeeDee Lamb, snatching the phone back.
Yeah.
And then my man that was in the Old Spice robe. Those were like the 3 best moments of the entire draft. But she was like, girl, get up off of my son.
This is his moment. That's Jaylon.
Right, exactly.
You see the snake, and here comes Jaylon. Snake. You see LVE, the how. Here comes Jaylon. How. It's
the
like
them damn black glasses.
But the thing that annoyed me more than that is we're down by 18 points with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left, and Jaylon gets a tackle for 1 yard gain. Here he comes.
Yep.
Swipe. Dog, we down 18, dog. Chill out, man. But that's, in my opinion, that's part of that branding. That when he signed that contract and he talked about building that brand and say, I don't care what anybody says. I think Jaylon took that on the field. I really just do.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, man.
100% agree.
Yeah.
So hopefully, and I know that, I mean, you see Jaylon when he talks about his foundation and all the work that he's doing in the street. And again, I need to make sure that people understand. I don't talk bad about anybody as a person because I don't know these dudes.
Right.
I don't know these dudes at all. Right. I'm talking about what I see as far as they're on the field and how what they do in front of the camera, I think, affects what happens on the field. Jaylon Smith, by all accounts, is the man when it comes to being a person. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like everything that he overcame with his injury and all the things that he's doing with his charitable foundations and those sorts of things, I commend him 100% on that stuff. I'm not taking anything away from that thing. But there are people that do good things that
still be Hollywood.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, I wanted to get your take on another, what I consider a hump player, which we done went, how many minutes has it been, guys? It's been roughly 40 minutes or so without bringing up one Jamal Adams. And I am pretty proud of us, so I'm going to give us a little round of applause right quick because we went this long without bringing up Jamal Adams. But I got to bring him up, man. It's different little things we could touch on. The way he's going about this, which I'm not really in agreement with. Is it a realistic possibility? Do we even need him? A lot of people believe he's not worth the hype, which, late night hype, I don't agree with. I think he is worth the hype, but man, just give me the whole shebang on Jamal Adams on how you feel, because everybody's loving your viewpoints on things here in the chat, man. So we appreciate you for sure. So give us your take on Jamal Adams.
Get him.
Get him.
Go get him. Go get him.
Thank you, sir.
Go get him. You can pay the man. He comes cheap. He's already said that there's a select number of teams that he'll accept a trade to, that he doesn't need to renegotiate his contract right away. Trade for him. Do what you did with Amari. Have him for the the season that you trade for him. Have him for the 5th year option. Break the bank with him come 2022. It's that simple. It's that simple. You trade the first round pick. The first round pick, I know the Cowboys are great at drafting in the first round, but if you can get 2 years out of a young player, and Jamal Adams is young, if you can get 2 years of production out of a young player, it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, what we saw out of the way that they handled the Amari Cooper situation, I was against giving up a first for Amari Cooper when they made the trade midseason, because I was not sure that was the asking price. I believed what we saw from the last year and a half of him in Oakland was indicative of what he was, and obviously he had the Oakland tax stacked on the last couple of years of how he was performing. He was incredible once he came to the Cowboys. The chemistry that he had with Dak. I didn't think that they should have made that move. I changed my mind once I saw how good Amari Cooper was with the Cowboys. I have no such reservations about Jamal Adams. I watched that man play. I think he is, if not the best safety in the league, he's one of the top 2 or 3 safeties in the league. And I think that he has the ability to do so much on the defense. He can cover. He's not going to be a huge interception guy. He's not like Troy Polamalu where he's going to get those kind of numbers. But he has the ability to rush the passer, be a chess piece. He can match up with a tight end. He is basically Darren Woodson reincarnated. And I think that type of player who can be the foundational leader. Remember, the secondary is sauce right now. I mean, we have no idea what the secondary is going to look like for the Dallas Cowboys. You have Awuzie, who I don't think is very good. You lost Byron Jones. You have a rookie in Diggs. I love Xavier Woods. I'm okay with Clinton Dix. I'm not opposed to the signing. I don't think he's as good as his hype anymore. I don't think he's, that kind of safety, but I think he's definitely better than serviceable. He's better than an average player. I just don't think he's a superstar. But if you could get Jamal Adams and put him back there to be the leader of your secondary, I think it takes it to a whole nother level. Then you have a superstar in your secondary, you have a superstar at linebacker, you have a superstar on the front line. And if you have that superstar at each level, as well as a second in command, let's say that Gerald McCoy is your second best defensive lineman. That's really good. Jaylon Smith is your second best linebacker. That's really good. Xavier Woods or Clinton Dix is your second best secondary player, or hopefully Diggs in 2 years, whatever, however long it takes him to develop. That's pretty good. So I think if you have that 1-2 punch at each level of your defense, then you have the making of a defense that can go out there and win a Super Bowl with you. So I think you go get him.
If you're the Jets, why would you make that deal with Jerry Wayne Jones? Why would you do that? When the Jets, good and well, half of these owners, they can't stand Jerry. They can't stand it. They won't pull the trigger. They would rather send Jamal to the 49ers, or they're going to send him over there to the Eagles. They're going to do that. I don't think that they're going to give the power to the Dallas Cowboys. And I hate to be a contrarian on this, but that's just how the reality of it. All of this news, all of this stuff is not up to Jamal. It's up to the Jets.
Up to the Jets.
I think
you're right.
Jets will not pull the trigger for Jerry. They won't, because they know in the back of their mind, he said, man, I don't want to get Herschel Walker with this. I don't want to have our name all over the news that we gave Dallas Cowboys multiple Super Bowls. We're not going to do it.
Well,
not to the Dallas.
Here's where I'll say I agree with you and I disagree with you.
Go ahead.
I agree with you that the Jets are in complete control of everything, and I don't really think the Jets are going to trade Jamal Adams. But I don't think it has anything to do with Jerry. I just don't think they're going to trade him. They have, just like I'm talking about, the Cowboys have 2 years would have 2 years of cheap control over him. The Jets would have 2 years of cheap control over him, and they already have him. Sure. And then you add to it that you can slap the franchise tag on him for year 3. They have 3 years of control on him. It could just be that man doesn't want to play in New York, and he's trying to do anything that he can to get out of New York. But the Jets don't have to listen. They don't. They don't have to listen. You can't hold out anymore. The CBA that they just signed basically made it the worst thing ever for a player to hold out. Like, you used to be able to hold out, you get a new deal, the team would write something in your contract and say, we forgive you for all of those fines. Can't do that anymore. They raise the fine level. Now, if you miss training camp, it's up to $50,000 a day or something like that for the days that you miss. And you can't refund that. So they basically, and then they cut service time, as far as having a year accrued, they made a change to how that's calculated if you're holding out. So basically, you can't hold out if you're under contract. And you have him under cheap control. If I'm the Jets, I'm not trading him. But if he causes enough havoc, and the out, or I should say the asterisk, is the Jets seem to have a really stupid head coach in Adam Gase.
Right.
that might be the silver lining in all of this, that Adam Gase, if the front office dude, the GM's name is slipping my mind right now, but if Adam Gase,
Joe Douglas,
Joe
yes,
Douglas.
Thank you, Joe Douglas. If Adam Gase convinces Joe Douglas that Jamal is enough of a problem, they might acquiesce and go ahead and send him out. I don't think it's going to happen, but if I'm the Cowboys, people say, they don't need to give up more than a 1. I give up a 1 this year and a 2 next year for Jamal Adams. I would. And I would. I mean, draft capital is so hit or miss. Like, okay, everybody's talking about, look, we just got CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, but a couple years ago, we drafted Taco Charlton. You wouldn't have given up Taco Charlton? You wouldn't have given up Taco Charlton and Chidobe Awuzie for Jamal Adams?
AD, I tell people this all the time. When people try to say, well, we wouldn't have got CeeDee Lamb. You wouldn't have been crying if the first round pick this year was Jamal Adams. You would have not been crying, fam. You would have been okay. But guess what? Now we have the possibility to have Jamal Adams and CeeDee Lamb.
You don't bank on what a draft pick can be, and I don't care how good you are at drafting. If you don't fall in love with the potential. It's a lottery pick. It's a lottery pick. Lottery ticket, exactly. You got it 100% correct. It's a 50-50 hit rate, and even if you're looking at the Cowboys and what they've done over the last couple of years, I would say that the Cowboys trading for Amari Cooper was much better than what they would have had if they had gone into the draft in 2019 with a first-round pick.
True.
Much better.
Because you don't know what you're getting.
You don't know what you're getting.
We can do all that in college. We've seen tons of players in college that turn up, and when they get to the pros, they don't do it.
You've got the lottery ticket, and you got the lottery ticket in your draft pick, or then you have the actual winnings in Jamal Adams. Which one you take?
Exactly. What's that? I think it was a Simpsons episode where he was like, you could have A or B, and A was like a boat or something. And no, that's what it was. It was Family Guy. And Peter Griffin, and they were like, you could have this huge giant yacht, or you could have what's in this box. And he was like, I'll take what's in the box. It could even be a yacht. Like, take. I
remember that episode.
You take what you know is a bona fide commodity, as opposed to the pick. Now look at the Cowboys' last couple of drafts. 2019, they traded their first round pick. You know what I'm saying, for Amari Cooper. And I would say that was a brilliant move.
Worked out.
2018, they drafted Leighton Vander Esch, but they didn't have him for year 2. So right now, that's a wash. I mean, we think he's going to be an All-Pro when he comes back, but right now that's a wash because we don't really know. So that's still undecided. The year before that, they took Taco Charlton. So where are you at? You have a trade, you have a bust, and you have a maybe. And then you have CeeDee Lamb, who everybody thinks is going to be great. So look at the last 4 years and your batting average. You're not hitting on all of those situations. One of them you traded, so that's an example of it working, of that mentality working. And then the other guys, you have one bust, one guy that you hope is going to be great, and one guy that you hope isn't injured for life. So why are you so apprehensive about trading a first-round pick if you look at the recent history of the team?
They like those darts, man. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's groupthink. I don't know if it's. I just don't understand it, man. Because if you go put on a tape with Jamal Adams, he's a pure playmaker. He's a pure difference maker. And people want to. And I don't mean to make a pun here, but people want to box him in as a box safety, and I laugh at you because go study him prior to coming into the NFL. He can cover. He just played in a Greg Williams defense that said, hey, this man is an amazing player that can do everything, so we're going to ask him to do everything. I will tell you guys, go watch the little film session that he sat down with Baldy from last year and watch when he's breaking down the coverage. He can cover, guys, so let's stop boxing this.
I completely agree. You go get him. Go get him. Pay the price.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Do you think because of this, the COVID thing is going on to you, do you think that has a little bit to do with maybe the prolonging of a signing, or maybe we're apprehensive with that because we don't know what the cap is going to be later on. We don't know what the unknown is.
I think it has a role in everything. It simply has a role in everything. I mean, the same way nothing about our personal lives are the same. Nothing about our personal lives are the same. Nothing about our business lives are the same. Why would that not apply to everything in football? I mean, you have to make decisions. I'm sure that, if you're working and you had doubts on whether or not your job was going to be able to survive, you probably tighten your purse strings personally. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of people get furloughed. They might have to take a pay reduction, or, a lot of that is going on in the media industry. You kind of have to plan for that sort of thing. So why would the Cowboys or any other NFL team not be doing the same thing? You don't know what the salary cap is going to look like. I'm sure that the owners are having discussions on what they will do if they have to play in front of no fans. As far as there's a bunch of possibilities on how they could approach it. They could reduce the salary cap in 2021, which would be devastating. It would absolutely be devastating, because then you're talking about all of those mid-level guys that are like on $5 million a year deal. A lot of those guys are going to be getting cut and then re-signed to other teams. So it all hell will break loose if they go that route. Another way they could do it is borrow from future caps, which would mean that they would probably keep the cap at around $198 million, which is what it is for this year. And instead of getting the normal $10 to $12 million bump, they would keep it flat for a year or 2 years, borrowing against future years to basically make up the difference. So they know the TV deals are going to come. TV isn't going away. That's not going to change, especially if they have no fans in the seats. Everybody's going to be watching on TV. So they know that TV money is going to come. They simply borrow against those future years to fund the salary cap and keep it flat for 2021, maybe 2022, before you see the big jump to be, to coincide with the money that they'd be getting from the new TV deal.
Yeah. And then the new TV deal is mentioning with Amazon. So when everybody mention Amazon, you got to turn your eyes and your ears on it and say, hey, there's going to be some money, because anything happening during this COVID crisis crap going on, Amazon making money.
Listen, I order groceries from Amazon, dog. But like, listen, you know what I'm saying? My parents are of that age where, it's dangerous to be out there. As soon as that pandemic hit, man, I'm ordering groceries from, they call it Amazon Fresh. It's different things in different pockets of the country, but Amazon Fresh, man, you can get groceries within the same day. Like, wow. I ordered at 7 a.m. and it's at my door by 11 a.m. And so Amazon making money, dog. And we already seen the trial as far as streaming football. That's clearly where it's going to go. They did the Amazon games. I think it was the Thursday night games. I think they were doing
they would have on Amazon as two different broadcasters.
Yep. So all of those sorts of things are the possibilities that they can do. And as soon as they've learned to properly monetize streaming football, that's going to be the direction it's going to go. So you have Amazon. I know that Netflix was interested in trying to figure out a way that they were going to get into the game. So when these TV contracts come up, don't be surprised if it's more than one streaming service that gets into the game. These channels, CBS and Fox, they're definitely going to have their thing. But that whole Thursday night package, possibility of a Saturday night package, all of those sorts of things are going to be on the table, especially if they have a season where they don't have fan revenue. That's going to open their mind and say, let's capitalize as much as possible. And honestly, who's going to really complain about saturation after missing sports for the last year?
Nobody.
Ain't nobody going to be like, that's too much football.
Nobody's
going to say that's too much football.
Right.
So this could be their opportunity. The same way baseball, you see what baseball did. They snuck in all the rule changes that they wanted to make. Because everybody's just fiending for baseball to come back.
Yeah, just whatever. Just change.
They just like, whatever, fam.
No DH.
You gonna start on third base? Go ahead, man.
Yeah. Like, they're doing it all. Anything that they thought of, they're like, let's go ahead and do it this year. So that's exactly how the NFL is going to approach it when it comes to these TV contracts. They're going to be like, look, do it all. Monday night, Tuesday night, have a game every night of the week, and everybody's watching. Everybody's watching.
You catch the new rule. It's not 3 strikes, you're out no more. You know.
When I saw that they really had people starting on second base at some point in the game, I said, "Is this
what is
real?"
That? They don't even do that in MLB The Show. You don't even do that in a video game, but you're going to do it in real life.
I don't know what's going on.
Second base.
But no, on the streaming platform part, I knew something was happening here when I would get my notification that said Yahoo Fantasy Sports says you can click on here and watch the game. When it was streaming on Yahoo from the games in London. I said, damn, this is different.
Yeah.
I guess the NFL was really starting to get into, they've always been progressive,
they're
right? But man, they smart. They smart. And now with this COVID, like you said, man, I mean, how do you not take advantage of all the streaming platforms?
They're going to. Yep.
And the rewind would be crazy on Netflix, right? I missed the game, but hey, let's Netflix and chill, girl. We gonna watch the Cowboys tonight.
I don't know if any of y'all subscribe to the NFL Game Pass.
Yes.
It is probably the worst product that they could possibly put out there.
Yes.
So if any of these streaming services can teach them how to run Game Pass, just give me one of those little tracker buttons where I can, like you do in the video control room where you can track to rewind. Like the control level that they give you. Why is it all 22 out immediately after the game? You have the film.
Giving us 3 days, fam. Like
what are you waiting on to put that out? But I mean that entire product is trash, and I buy it every year no matter what, because you have to
buy it there, get it.
You can't download the game, so you gotta screen record the damn. It's like, come on, man, just download the play, fam.
Listen, I got a whole hard drive just for NFL games. Listen,
my man Stevie says soon Nickelodeon's gonna be airing playoff games. So
hey, if the money's right. If the money's right, Stevie, to go ahead and put that on, put the little green goo and all that on the field, they'll do all of it, man.
Yeah.
Hey, man, listen, we'll be remiss if we didn't bring up some other football stuff with the Cowboys, because we got to get your take on these rookies, right, James?
Yes, sir.
And we don't got
before you dive into the rookies.
Okay,
I just ask him this one question? Are you a fan of Jordan Hip Pocket Lewis?
Oh, you want to go J. Lou? Okay, we go J. Lou.
Oh, my bad.
No, J. Lou's cool.
The game, but are you a fan of J. Lou? I just want to do that before we go into these untouched players.
Okay, let me first say this.
Uh-oh.
Out of all of the Cowboys that are out there, Jordan Lewis is the best on Twitter. Hands down, he has the best Twitter account. Of all of the Cowboys players, he has the most fun. That dude will crack on anybody. So shout out to him and the way that he handles his social media. Now, I run a player power poll every week of the season for the last 3 years. for the last 2 years, every week where I slot Jordan Lewis, every week that he doesn't play, the comment that I put after Jordan Lewis, and I have him ranked higher than a Wouzier almost every week. The comment I have is play Jordan Lewis in all caps. I've done it probably out of 32 weeks of the season. I've probably done it at least 18 to 20 times. Play Jordan Lewis because they wouldn't play him, but then they play him and he has a bad game. I'm like, come on, man, you had your opportunity.
Wait, I want everyone to hear that because a lot of people think that certain people don't like J. Lou. I love J. Lou, right? But we can't propel this man. We can't act like he's Jalen Ramsey. What KD just said is he played him and he had a bad game. Guys, he actually does have bad games, y'all. I just want y'all to hear that. That's all. But go ahead.
What was it? 2018, that Detroit game. Oh my God, Oh
yeah. But I'm sorry, KD. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, but so I like
game last year too.
I like Jordan Lewis, but the way that Chris Richard plays, had his players play defense, didn't seem to suit what J. Lou did. Mm-hmm. So you have to take when it comes to the secondary players. And I'm sure Sky will attest to this. The way that you play them has to fit what their skill set is. It absolutely has to. More than any other position on the field, I think cornerback, the scheme that you play has to fit what that player's strengths are. And Jordan Lewis just didn't seem to match for whatever reason with the way Chris Richard wanted him to play. We saw that the fact that Jordan Lewis couldn't get on the field, and then it was hit or miss when he was on the field. How will he perform? I'm not saying that J. Lou always played bad when he got in the game.
Right.
He definitely had a handful of bad games, and with such a limited sample size, it made you wonder. Okay, well maybe Richard isn't in the wrong for not having him out there. If that's what he's seeing in practice, then maybe it's not in the wrong that he doesn't play. I think Jordan Lewis needs a fresh start. I think he needs to go to a team that doesn't care about length, and we've already heard Mike Nolan say that he wants long cornerbacks. So Jordan Lewis is out. Now, at least he has, long arms, but he's short. So, he's 5'9", 5'10", and he has he has good arm length for his height, but he doesn't have overall length that they like in the position. So I think a team, I've often said this past all season, especially around draft time, Jordan Lewis would have been a good trade chip because I'm sure that there is a team that liked him in the draft coming out that doesn't mind short cornerbacks, that knows what Chris Richard did, that knows what Mike Nolan is planning on doing and saying, I could do something with that guy. And I think he could ball out in the right system, but the Cowboys didn't have the right system. And from the sounds of what Mike Nolan is saying, how he wants his quarterbacks to be, they may not be the right system for him again in 2020. So I just think that guy can play. I don't think that he could play in what Chris Richard was asking of him, and it's up in the air whether or not he could play for Mike Nolan.
So KD, you would like for a first and Jordan Lewis to the Jets for Jamal?
Listen.
What if you
listen?
Anyway, go ahead. You answer that.
Listen, why? I mean, it makes sense. I'd give him
beautiful trade.
Look,
give him a Wouzier.
Hold on.
Give him a Wouzier.
Give him any one of them corners except Diggs.
Give him a Wouzier.
They don't want a Wouzier. Come on, man.
I'm just saying. Hey, I'm just saying. We gonna look at some. I'm just gonna go by your body type and some potential. Just go.
No, listen. Hey, all jokes
give him
aside.
Xavier Woods.
All jokes aside, I say things on Twitter and it becomes, kind of like a running joke because so many people just kept building up a Wouzier at the start of the 2018 season. And I was like, are y'all watching him? Oh, he's giving sticky coverage. That was just a great pass.
You mean 2019?
Yeah, 2020. Was it 2019?
Yeah, I was kind of one of them.
Hold up.
He's not sticky in coverage, though, KD. He ain't getting burnt like that toast, though.
He's sticky in coverage. And he has absolutely zero ball awareness.
Yeah.
He has no idea that the ball is coming. So who cares how close you are? Because all the receiver has to do, who knows the ball is coming, is adjust, and they're making the catch on him. You can't keep saying that was a perfect pass 17 times a season, and there's only 16 games a year. Like every single game, somebody completes the perfect pass of all time on Chidobe Awuzie. So it's about his ball awareness. So I'm really not keen on him being the number one, and I was basically exonerated on my take because I argued with people for many weeks on that. I was exonerated when Will McClay was like, yeah, we're probably considering moving him to safety. You don't do that if a dude's a good corner. Safety isn't as important as cornerback. So the team talking about moving him to safety basically lets you know that they don't think that he's performing up to his potential or what the potential they saw in him when they drafted him.
Let's go.
But I would trade.
What?
I would trade a number one. I would trade Lewis. I'd get Tyron Crawford's money off the book. I would trade all of them for Jamal Adams. Everybody.
Yeah, take all of our we don't want guys. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I'll go a step further with Awuzie. They didn't sign him to an extension. I mean, same thing with J. Lou. People get mad at us because we say, dog, I know y'all don't like Anthony Brown, but when you pop on the tape, when you pop on the analytics, and when they popped on the tape, they said, you got Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis, extended Anthony Brown,
right?
And they did not extend Jordan. They didn't have to extend.
Look, it wasn't even an extension. They didn't.
I'm sorry. They signed him. I'm sorry. You're right.
They signed him.
Yeah.
He was free to go anywhere. He was free to go anywhere, and they were like, "No, we want you back. 3 years, $50 million. Please come back to our team."
KD.
And to bring that back to Awuzie, then they went out and said, okay, not only are we not going to extend you, Cheeto, we're going to go draft a corner very high, a corner that we could have took in the first round. Yeah, 2 corners in our top 100 picks. We took 2 corners. So not only did we not extend you, we went and we drafted your replacements. Because what did Jesse say? They definitely drafted his replacements,
Listen. They not only drafted his replacement, they drafted his, just in case we're going to get insurance to make sure that we don't have to pay you. Yeah. So, I mean, they drafted 2, and they can talk all they want to about moving Reggie Robinson to safety and all that kind of stuff. They drafted 2 cornerbacks. The way that Robinson played in the last year, his improvement from 2018 to 2019 was so dynamic. The sky's the limit on Robinson, in my opinion, as far as playing cornerback. They're not moving that man to safety. I pray they don't move that man to safety because I think he has
cornerback.
Please, he has great potential to be a star in this league, not just a serviceable player. He has potential.
Let's go there. Hold on, KD. Let's go there. That's a great segue.
Let's go there.
Segue to the rookies.
Segue. I mean, we're sticking. Let's just stay on that position here, cornerbacks with Diggs and Robinson. I mean, you kind of gave us your take on Robinson. How do you feel about Diggs? And then is the COVID going to hurt them, though, in getting playing time early in the season? But your take first on the draft picks, Reggie and Diggs.
Yeah, I told you about Reggie. I think that he has a lot of potential. They're very similar guys. They're very athletic and they're good downhill, facing the receiver. That's how I like to see them. And I think that the way that we've heard about the way that Mike Nolan wants to run his secondary, I think that they were phenomenal picks for what the Cowboys are going to do differently as far as how they play their cornerbacks. I was in love with getting Diggs where they got him. I know there was talk about him being in a first round. I didn't think he was a first round player, but I loved where they got him in the second round. I think he was in that. I'm trying to remember where I had him on my top 50. He was somewhere in that range beyond where they were in the first round. I would have hated if they had gone to him at 17, but anywhere after 30, I think that he was a quality pick. So I'm very pleased with what they did with those 2 selections in the secondary. I wish that they could have gotten a safety, but I'm very pleased with how that draft unfolded. And then, as we were talking about Awuzie, not only did they draft those 2 guys, then they turned around and signed Worley. They signed a starting caliber cornerback. They don't want you, my guy. They don't want you. They don't want you, bruh. They've made it very clear that they plan on turning over that cornerback room, and they're just holding on to guys. Brown they signed, so they clearly like what he does. But as far as Awuzie and Lewis, they're holdovers. They're in the final year of the contract. They're both definitely walking, so they could easily be trade chips, depending on what they see. Now, I think if they had the offseason to work with these guys, the trade possibility would have been a lot more stronger. But now you're talking about you're going to be making last minute deals during training camp because you have no idea what you got in these dudes. And they might get a Awuzie out there and he might have been working hard on the offseason and working on his ball awareness, and he turns around and balls out and we had no idea it was coming. I would love for that to happen. You know what I'm saying? Right. That would make the Cowboys even stronger. So I'm just talking about what I've seen. I'm not saying that's their ceiling, but based on what I've seen, I would rather have somebody other than Awuzie out there. And I think
KD. Worley already came out and said, hey, my intentions is to start.
Hey,
as soon as he was signed, I said, if you go look at his track, Well, if you go look at his track record, like he said, I'm not no special teams cat. Like he started his whole career except for when he was hurt, and people called me crazy, but I said don't be surprised if Daryl Worley, and now before COVID really hit us, I said Trevin Diggs were the starters at the beginning of the season. But I think maybe because of COVID, you might see a Wuzie out there or Jordan Lewis, dare I say, as my boy Law Nation would say, if he beats him out. But I really do believe Worley has a very good shot at being a starting cornerback on this.
When I made my all season my depth chart, Worley starts for me. Worley starts for me. I had Worley and Diggs starting for me. But again, like you said, because of COVID and not having the rookie mini camp and the OTAs and all of those sorts of things to get them, immersed in the Mike Nolan system, it might be too much to ask.
Yeah, for
I think their players, definitely Robinson, coming from the level of competition that he's coming from. I think he definitely needed the offseason in order for him to be a major contributor in year one. But maybe because the rest of the league is in the same situation that, it's a little bit easier for them to catch on. Obviously teams that, matching up against veterans, but a lot of teams are going to be trying to work in these young guys.
Yeah.
And if teams are smart and they expect these cuts to happen next year, playing rookies now and getting them experience, getting the cheap guys experience now will pay off next year when you might have to reshuffle your entire roster based on the salary cap changing. So if you're a forward-thinking organization, and your GM, the guy that manages your money for the Cowboys, Stephen Jones, for other teams, the general manager, you go to your coach and you're like, if everything is equal, or if this guy is at a 60 and this guy's at a 58, but he's a rookie, maybe you go with the rookie. Maybe that that kind of stuff has to. You think that football is just all about who's the better player at that time. But trust me, those front offices are leaning on the coaching staff when it comes to those sorts of, well, if it's a tie or close to a tie, let's go with the cheap guy. Can we get rid of this player now? That's another thing. Saving money on a salary cap now means that you have that space next year. So while we were talking about Tyron Crawford and that money, that's also another angle. If you cut Tyron Crawford and save that $8 million this year and don't pay him, you roll that over into next year. So that means that if you cut him this year, if you think that he's, your sixth best defensive lineman, you cut him, because that $8 million now goes on the 2021 salary cap. So if you're saying, okay, well, we're not increasing the cap or it's going down, well, look, you got $8 million more worth of space because you didn't have him on your 2020 roster, but you have it now in the 2021 cap. So all of these sorts of things are going into teams thinking and how they're proceeding towards a season that we've never had to deal with in our lifetime as football fans.
Well, when you talk about cutting Tyron Crawford, I think this new regime kind of, is giving us a little bit more ammo to do that by bringing in Poe, by bringing in McCoy, and then drafting Neville Gallimore. What is your take on Neville? And I know I brought up Crawford because I do think he can slide in at 3.
Right.
But really, the real competition for Neville is Tristan Hill. And I asked all of our guests that have come on this show, is this an indictment on Tristan Hill moving forward by drafting Neville, who a lot had as a second-round player?
No, it is not an indictment on Hill, because the staff that's in place now has no idea what Tristan Hill can do for them. There definitely isn't tape on him. You're going back to what he was in college. He was benched because he didn't get along with a coach. So, he had, good stats as a role player in college in his final year, but you basically have 2 years of spotty film to be able to evaluate Hill. So I don't think it's an indictment on him. Hill is a wait to be seen.
Yeah.
He had a redshirt season. He came out of the draft early. He didn't get along with the coaching staff. He came out of the draft early, and I think by all accounts, he kind of knew that he wasn't ready to be in the NFL, but it didn't make sense for him to return to a college program that didn't want him. So he went ahead and entered the draft, and he didn't look good in any aspect of training camp. We heard the reports from everybody that was there that he kind of just looked lost, wasn't strong enough, and all those sorts of things. But if you look at it as he spent his senior year of college in an NFL internship, doesn't that kind of change how you view this guy? You know what I'm saying? Like if he was just simply spending the year practicing with an NFL team, that would kind of change how you would look if you weren't having any expectations for him. And he had higher expectations because he was the first Cowboys pick, even though he was in the second round.
But go even further than it. Go in further with why his expectations were higher, because we passed on a certain name and it was Juan Thornhill and all the other guys that we could have took the safety position.
we passed on the 3 safeties in order to take Tristan Hill. So everybody said he damn sure better be worth it. And he wasn't. And he wasn't. And it was a Rod Marinelli special, just like Taco Charlton was a Rod Marinelli special. And God bless Will McClay for falling on the sword for Rod Marinelli. Listen, I wrote about Rod Marinelli not being a good defensive coordinator years ago. He came in with so much hype, and I wrote, when are we going to see this bomb Cowboys defense that Rod Marinelli is supposed to be constructed? When did it happen? It didn't. It didn't. He's a great defensive line coach.
He just didn't have Simeon Rice and what's the other guy?
Darren Brooks and John Lynch and all
Urlacher.
Warren Sapp.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know what happened with him,
Right.
KD. He just he fell in love with this whole orphans thing, and Brian Broaddus talked about it on the show. For whatever reason, he fell in love with these orphans. But, dude, you didn't have orphans in Chicago. You didn't have orphans in Tampa. Why all of a sudden you want some damn orphans?
But
Old age.
you know, 2 things that stand out to me though about that is one, I think we had talked about when Broaddus was on there, is that when you have a Jason Garrett and that's your head coach, your team takes on the personality of the coach. Yep. And remember how Rob Marinelli was getting all kind of turnovers, then he came over to Dallas, he had 1 year, and then after that you feel what I'm saying? And even though we were talking about Juan Thornhill and those guys and how much we wanted them, we're talking about the coaching. And I brought this up to Broaddus. We're talking about the coaching. So as good as Thornhill did at other programs, there was no guarantee he would came over to Dallas and would have turned up with us, because what? Dallas had a lot of bad coaching going on this past year, and they had a lame duck coach. So now I'm not saying Thornhill and them are not good players, but we've seen those good players come with Dallas and don't do shit.
Now that's very true, but look at it another way. If we drafted Thornhill, we're not signing Clinton Dixon. We got enough money for Everson Griffin right now.
True story.
Yeah, Thornhill's a tough example, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all domino effect, and it's all second guessing and predictions and all that, and then we turn around and we analyze what happened, and we hope that we were right in some occasions, but we admit when we were wrong. Mm-hmm. There were other options. And like we said earlier in the show, it's a lottery ticket. So you're taking a gamble. But for the Cowboys to have made that move for the defensive tackle, you knew that they predicted that they were going to lose Malik Collins. They were trying to. The Cowboys, it's one of my draft commandments. Everybody that follows me knows that I write my draft commandments, 10 commandments at the draft time that predict basically how the Cowboys function. It's more so a reflection of how they've moved over the last several years. Mm-hmm. But the Cowboys like to get in front of the money. If there's a position that they don't want to pay a guy that's coming up for a contract, that weighs heavily into their decision of which positions they're going to draft. They always draft defensive line heavy. Defensive line, linebackers, and cornerbacks. They always draft those 3 positions very heavy. And then when you add into the fact that you had Malik Collins that was going to be coming up, you didn't know what was going to be happening with Antoine Woods, whether he was going to be able to capitalize. He was a journeyman that they found. You didn't know whether they were going to be able to capitalize on him. It made sense for them to go out and get themselves a defensive tackle. They got the wrong one. They reached for a guy that Rod Marinelli fell in love with that other people didn't think was going to be a 2nd round pick. Most people predicted him to be a 3rd round pick, maybe even a 4th round pick. Some of the extreme things, you might have seen 1 or 2 people that were calling him a 2nd round pick, but most people felt that was kind of a reach for the Cowboys. And then to add on to it that was their first pick in the draft, and he got the weight, the heaviness of the expectations of the first player drafted by the Cowboys. It just all kind of just steamrolled. With that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if Hill came out and he had a serviceable year. I don't think he's going to be a superstar this year, especially without the offseason and being able to work, but new regime,
I think
it could have been a beautiful
player.
thing.
It's just a lot of problems with him. It's just mental, because he does have some talent. And a lot of publications where you were saying they had him a 3rd and 4th round, I think it was more of the maturity thing. I don't believe it was the talent base. I think it was really big on the maturity. And that's what has really hurt him. And like you said, you got a clean slate. And I love Gallimore like the rest, but I just don't want to throw away a Tristan Hill, because I do think he has talent and he has good size. And I like to see them two, a Gallimore and a Hill, be a cornerstone instead of you just drafting him and just throwing his ass away.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think a lot of people talked about the possibility of trading him to Oakland, Rod Marinelli, or to the Raiders. Take him because you're the one that drafted him. There's absolutely no point in trading him. Taco had to go because Taco's attitude problem was clear with the Cowboys. The coaching staff openly questioned that man's effort, and Then he got traded from Miami for the same thing.
So everybody else.
Right. So and then he himself said, I'm really going to take it serious now. Bro,
okay.
What are you talking about?
3 teams later. Okay.
What are you talking about? You're now going to take it seriously. So that was well warranted for the Cowboys to have given up on him when they did. But I think it's far too early to give up on Hill.
When I say there's no point in trading Hill, obviously if you get a great deal, you do it. But what I mean is you're not going to get a deal that's going to be worth the second round pick you used on him the year before. So you don't trade him for a 6th round pick after 1 year when he has potential. You just got to see if this new regime it'll work out. And I agree, Big Game James. It would be beautiful if Hill and Gallimore can become your cornerstones at the defensive tackles at some point because we got Poe. Got McCoy, and I have said this. Poe and McCoy are signed on multiple year deals, but that doesn't mean after a year or two you can move forward if you see some progression from your young guys. So yeah, don't throw them away just yet. But on the other side of the ball, we drafted badass is what we like to call him, but Tyler Biadasz. And I don't know, man. I talk about this on a lot of shows and we bring a lot of people. I am so fascinated by the center position with drafting him, having Looney, possibly McGovern, who knows? But I'm fascinated with the left guard and center competition I think we're going to have coming into this season here. Can you see Tyler maybe, doing something here? Because he was the Remington Award winner, which is given to the best center. And honestly, he's probably only a 4th round pick because he got injured. But what's your take on Tyler Biadasz, center out of Wisconsin?
Really quick, let me circle back around.
I'm sorry.
Poe. No, you're good. Dontarie Poe signed a 2-year deal, but it's really a 1-year deal. They can escape it for like $750,000 next year. So if Hill and Gallimore ball out, they could easily walk away from Poe and be more than fine without a salary cap hit. As far as the center position goes, when Joe Looney played for Travis Frederick in 2018, he did okay. He did okay. Physically, he was okay. But Joe didn't command the offensive line like Travis Frederick did. Now, when Travis Frederick came back in 2019, he commanded the line like Travis Frederick did, but physically he wasn't what he used to be. He made the Pro Bowl, but it wasn't a Travis Frederick year. He was, a little bit better than serviceable. He was brilliant because he's one of the best. Excuse me. He's one of the smartest centers in the league. But his play was nowhere near the level of what he was previously when he was Pro Bowl type of player. Tyler, I think if this was a full offseason, hands down was going to win the job. I had no doubt Tyler was going to win the job over Joe Looney. None. The only competition that I saw for Tyler was if Connor McGovern doesn't win the job at left guard. And I think
want him to win that.
Right. We want him to win that. But he was a much better, not much better, but he was a center at Penn State the year prior to his final year. He went from center to guard. As a matter of fact, the picture that we use of Connor McGovern on Cowboys Wire, his draft profile was actually him hiking the ball. So we know that he has that center background and he's capable of doing that. I think that he would have, if you're doing the whole get the best 5 guys out there type of approach to the offensive line, I think McGovern is going to fit in there somewhere. I'd be actually shocked in a non-COVID environment if Joe Looney was in that starting lineup. Wow. But now that we're talking about these guys that are young, they can't practice. McGovern missed all of last year and he had a pec injury. So, if he can't he can't work out, he can't bench press because with a torn pec, what are you going to do? You can work on your lower body and you can work on your trunk, your base, but he can't work on his upper body strength with that pec injury. So that was a wash for him. And now he has no offseason. So you have 2 guys who in any other year could have been in competition, but now you're like, it's almost a shoo-in that Joe Looney is going to start at center. Yeah. Like, how could he not?
Why would he go with Connor Williams? Because even Brian Broaddus, when he was on the show, he was talking a little bit about... Hold on one second.
I want to move forward from Biadasz real quick. I kind of want to elaborate on this. To further prove your point about Biadasz, we forget this little tiny detail here. They traded up to get him. Do you trade up from the 5th to the 4th round to get the Remington Award winner at center to not really play him? I don't think so, but I agree with you though. The COVID is a knock, right?
Yeah, as far as Biadasz goes, he was tracking as a 1st round pick before the injury plagued season that he had. when the injury that he had, I believe something showed up at the combine, and he played injured. He had an injury the previous year, so that injury knock was something that I think knocked him down into the 4th round. But as far as talent goes, and he says that he's completely healthy, he said that during the draft that he's now completely healthy, I think he would have won the job. But go ahead with your question about Connor.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, where will you place him if Connor Williams, if he's the guy to be that guard, and Connor McGovern steps up, and you have this situation, whereas I've heard Brian Broader said that they even gave Connor Williams snaps at center to see whether he can do that. What do you do with Connor Williams on this deal? Do you actually groom him to be the left tackle? Because this is where I think that he should be at in the future, if you're not, pitching your tent for Tyron Smith to be that guy for the remainder of the future. What are your plans and details of Connor Williams?
All right, here's my general take on things. Tyron Smith plays until Tyron Smith doesn't want to play anymore.
Yep.
Okay.
When he says he doesn't want to play anymore, I'm moving La'el Collins to the left side.
Wow. Okay.
If you prefer having Collins on the right tackle side, because right now in today's NFL, it's basically just as important. It's basically just as important. So you might not move him, but if you're thinking that you want to have your best tackle on the left side, then I would think about moving La'el Collins to the left side. I think that he has the feet to be able to do that. He's not as quick. He's not as athletic. He's more of a mauler guy, than what you think about in your prototypical left tackle. But I think he has a capability of doing that. There's a reason Connor Williams dropped to the 2nd round after playing tackle in college, because people didn't think he was good enough to be a tackle in the pros. So I don't think that you can project and say that he's going to be the future at tackle, because if he had that future, somebody would have drafted him as a tackle before the Cowboys got him at the end of the 2nd round. NFL teams get it wrong all the time, but for the most part, when you're dealing with that sort of thing, a lot of teams projected him to move to guard. It wasn't just the Cowboys came out of thin air and said, we're going to move Connor Williams to guard, and the whole world was like, oh my God, they're so crazy. No, everybody was like, yeah, that's what you're going to do. You're going to move Connor Williams to guard. So while I think that he could be a swing tackle and have the kind of up and down the line flexibility like the guy that they signed, Cam Irving, to be the swing tackle, he can, do all of those multiple positions. I know. Cam Irving, Cam Irving in the light of being a 1st round pick, nasty. Cam Irving in the light of, okay, well, he can play any position for you on game day and be serviceable, brilliant. Maybe that's Connor Williams' ceiling. You know what I'm saying? We have to separate ourselves from our affection for the Cowboys and thinking that Will McClay walks on water, which he doesn't walk on water, but he gets a couple steps before he's 6. When it comes to making these picks.
I like it.
He gets a couple steps out there before he realizes that he's on water. And reality, like those cartoons where you don't realize it, and then once you realize it, then gravity kicks in. That's kind of how he does when it comes to the draft. But everything's not perfect. Maybe Connor Williams just isn't going to be a great player. And that's okay. Not for him. Obviously, he wants to work to be a great player. But as a Cowboy fan, maybe he's just not going to be a great player. And if McGovern beats him out, and Tyler is a better center, and Joe Looney is the best swing person, and then Cam Irvin is your up and down the line kind of guy, then Connor Williams is maybe your 8th offensive lineman. And you ride out until the end of the contract, and then you set him on his way. It happens. It happens.
Or you can keep him for depth. You never know. You never know how. Always need some offensive linemen. They got guys on, well, it's going to be interesting to see. We've all said, this COVID is just really, I think the biggest thing to me with this whole thing, this COVID just has me on the apprehensive thing. Like you said, I want to be so excited about the Cowboys because so many things look good, but this daggone COVID just has me sitting there thinking, like, I don't want to get excited and Dallas is 5-0 and all of a sudden they say season over.
Yep.
That's it.
Listen, that's a wild card, and I know we were talking about the draft, but that's a wild card that I don't think enough people are talking about, because we're all kind of doing the knock on wood, good vibes type of thing right now. You know what I'm saying? But this thing could go any number of ways, and not just like talking about canceling the season or anything that extreme. What happens if the wide receiver room gets an outbreak and they have to sit down for 3 weeks?
That's all I've been saying.
You know what I'm saying?
What if you got a playoff game? I mean, a playoff position type game, and somebody gets sick and then they can't play, and you need that player.
So I think this is one of the things that I talked about recently. I think that the league will expand rosters. I've been saying that for a couple about a month now, a couple weeks. There's no way that they can go into a COVID season and only have 53 players on the roster. There's no way, because 10 players on your practice squad isn't enough if a position gets an outbreak and you have to quarantine an entire position. Right. Unless you're going to just say that everybody's just going to start canceling games and you have like an 8-game season and it's just hit or miss on how you do everything. You have to have players, that are able to step in and practice with a team on a regular level. Maybe not all 90 players are going to be on the roster, the off-season roster, but I could easily see them bumping it up to 75. Look, baseball bumped up their roster, so we're seeing it in action now. Instead of the 40-man roster, the overall 40-man roster, they now have a 60-man roster so that you can pull players within the season if something happens. Football is going to do that same thing. But beyond that, all of this has changed everything. You don't know how that's going to play out as far as the infection. You don't know how meetings are going to play out. You have old coaches all over the league. The risk that the coaches take, of being in those type of environments. So everything is going to have to be different. They're talking about, coaches running practice from the booth so that they're not on the field with people's all of these things are being bandied about. We don't know officially what it's going to look like. They're very tight-lipped, but all of these things have to be thought about. Segregating the locker room. The Cowboys have at the Star in Frisco, the Ford Center, they have all of the locker rooms that they have for high school teams and all of those sorts of things. You can segment the Cowboys roster, but 31 other teams don't have that. Right. You know what I'm saying? You could have, just 10 players or, 15 players in one locker room, 15 players in another locker room, and so on and so forth, and keep everybody separated. And then you have the whole face shield and all of that kind of stuff when they're playing. Those are the type of things that they have to work out. But any of that can go awry and change the complete outlook on how the season is going to end up being. So all of that put together, the Mike McCarthy thing, the new coaching staff, not knowing how his staff works together. I'm sure they're doing Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff, but how the players are going to react to these coaches, we don't know any of that. They took away their entire offseason. So how can you go into it with the same hope that you had in January about what this team was going to look like with all of these things up in the air? We just don't know. We don't know.
Don't. Thanks, James. Thank you. I'm bummed out now.
Yeah,
he kind of. I didn't want to say, but
you heard what Jerry said.
Get your damn act together.
All right, man.
He just squeezed the late night hype. It's no longer the hype.
I'm sad now, man. I'm real sad now.
Okay, so hold on.
Look at Scott's face. Scott look like
sad,
a little
man.
kid.
Damn. All this is truth. All this is truth, though. I don't want to diminish it.
But let me circle it back around. Let me circle back around. If the Cowboys had better coaching last year, Mike McCarthy is worth 2 wins. Jason Garrett and his staff lost at least 2 games last year, at least. So I would say that the improvement of Mike McCarthy is worth 2 wins. Getting rid of Jason Garrett is worth 2 wins. And when I say getting rid of Jason Garrett, I'm including the fact that Jason Garrett kept riding with that horrible kicker that I've been trying to get rid of for a year and a half, that they finally pulled the plug on mid-season, Brett Maher. There was no way that he should have been kicking for the team, but they literally lost games because they had no confidence in the kicker, and they would have drives that should have been scores, and the momentum and the enthusiasm.
It affected their play calling.
Everything. It affected their play calling. It affected their morale, everything, and they just kept trotting him out there. Those decisions I put on Jason Garrett when I say that he lost at least 2 games last year. So combined with that, I think with a better coaching staff and the removal of those errors and the lame duckness and all the craziness with the leadership and all of that disarray, I think the Cowboys are a 12-win team. If they get to any semblance of being able to make that happen, I think it can be a special year. We just don't know whether or not they're going to have the opportunity to do that. But if they do, if they can put that magic together and compete against these teams with staffs that have been together for 3 years and know their routine and have been able to basically, Sean, pardon my French.
No,
Sean
you're
Payton,
good, man.
Oh, no, you good.
It's the late night hype.
It's the late night hype. You cuss all you want.
Sean Payton told his team to go home. That's how confident he is that they know his system. He told them, he was like, nah, we'll meet in training camp. Don't worry about this all season. We're not doing this Zoom bullshit. Just go. Just go be with your family. Stay safe. because he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys don't really have that opportunity because we don't know this coach. The players don't know this coach. So they're behind the 8 ball and they're working in their playbook, and it's just a whole different thing. So it's not a death sentence. It's just more difficult, but maybe they can do it. Maybe they're able to pull it off, but because they have the talent, they clearly have the talent. I mean, you go down the Cowboys roster and it's a stacked roster. So let's see what they can do.
Hey, KD, I want to ask you this though. Outside of Mike McCarthy, who is the off-season hire as it relates to coaching, the best one for you?
For the Cowboys?
For the Cowboys. It don't have to be the actual coach. It can be Rob Davis. It could be anybody. Who's the MVP, like the best off-season acquisition besides Mike McCarthy?
Oh
my goodness.
Put you on the spot.
You put me on the spot now. I'm trying to run through. I wasn't enthusiastic. I can tell you the one that I'm least enthusiastic about.
Yeah, that'll work too.
That was Mike Nolan. I had no idea how Mike Nolan resurfaced as the defense coordinator in this league. He's not good. He's
you didn't
not
like
good.
That Saints defense last year?
I don't like. He wasn't.
It was a linebacker. No,
he was a linebacker coach.
But you saw how they played, though. You didn't like that?
Let me ask you this, KD. Is it the I hate this word, familiarity with Mike McCarthy? Remember they coached with each other, I believe, maybe for a short period of time.
I think Nolan gave McCarthy his first job, something along those lines.
What was first prominent, because I think he was in Saints and then he came beat OC with Mike Nolan. So you got that, and then his track record with a hybrid style defense. Because here's my thing about the defense. I'm excited about the philosophical shift. Mike Nolan's last stint as a DC, a lot of people will say, why, like you said, why is he a defense coordinator? He was horrible in Atlanta. Right? Yep. You go look, Atlanta's defense was not that good. Didn't have a lot of players to be that good. But his track record is so long. He does have seasons in 10 years where it wasn't good. He has 10 seasons and 10 years where it was good. So I understand you. Yeah,
because I wrote an article and forgive me, like I said, you guys know I've been doing the move. So I've been kind of out of football brain for a couple weeks now. So a lot of stuff that I would normally be able to recall right away, I don't come up with right away. But Mike Nolan, when you looked at the history of his defensive rankings throughout his career, and his career spans back to the early 90s.
It's very lengthy.
It's lengthy, but it's mediocre.
It's middling.
Like his rankings, he has a lot of teams that were in the bottom half of the league. And you're just like, okay, well, maybe he's he fits what McCarthy wants to do. And he has some sort of chemistry with McCarthy that when they're together, it'll work better. But it wasn't a very enthusiastic hiring for me.
He was kind of cool with the Ravens. We had
Anthony Wright, but that was in 2000.
Yeah, a long time ago.
That was way back in the day. But I just think, a lot of times these guys, KD, these guys get recycled. You know what I'm saying? Because the familiarity, they don't give the new guy a chance. And since this is what we call I'm not going to say the make or break type season, but you got guys that are veterans. You don't have time to sit there and wait and figure it out if you're good or you're not. And I think that's why you see a lot of these guys that have been 15, 20-year coordinators, they get recycled and get the first hire because they're so familiar and they're used to, and they don't give that new guy a chance that can come in and really be a nasty coordinator for you.
Yeah, I was on a episode of I forgot the name of his show. Edward Egros, who used to be on TV in the Dallas area. I did his podcast recently. We were talking about the hiring of black coaches and the issue of getting black head coaching positions and how much of a struggle it is. It's because it's so difficult to get them through the pipeline. Now, we know that most head coaches come from the offensive side of football now, and most come from being offensive coordinator. Most offensive coordinators come from being quarterback coaches, and you don't see very many black quarterback coaches. So that's part of the reason why we have the issue. But the other side of it is exactly what you just said. People hire who they're familiar with. And if the coaching network has always been a for lack of a better term, brotherhood, who and who you've worked with before, that's what makes it so difficult. These guys just go with who's familiar with them as opposed to bringing on somebody that might have a good reputation, but they're not quite sure how well they're going to mesh. So that's a very big issue. And seeing a guy, off of his last couple seasons. Let me pull this up. Mike Nolan had in his career, he has 21 years of head coaching experience of coaching experience.
Yeah.
DC or head coach, 21 years. 7 of those years he had a top 10 defense. In 1993 with the Giants, he had the #1 defense. He had he had 3 6s, a 5, and an 8. But he had just as many times that he was ranked 23rd or below. 7 times his defense was ranked 23rd or below. He was ranked dead last. His defense was dead last when he was the head coach of San Francisco in 2006. He had a 30. He has a 28, 2 27s. So he's really been hit or miss. He's been all over the place in which Mike Nolan you're going to get. But when you look at it by years, the good years are, in the past. They're not.
The 90s.
Yeah.
They're 90s and early 2000s.
Like, it just hasn't been the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys this, Dan. One of the better hires that I've seen, because we loved everything from the Minnesota Vikings from 2014 to 2019 was George Edwards. By him, even now, it could be a situation where he's coming in, and yes, he's not the defensive coordinator. He's a positioning coach, but I think that he will have a lot of influence on this defense. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And he's not even a position coach. He's the senior defensive assistant.
What is that?
Look.
Making up names.
Look,
just like Will McClay, it's a made-up position for him. But go ahead.
But you have so Rob Davis is the assistant head coach, and he's not really an X's and O's guy. He's more of a, like a
player manager.
Right, exactly. That's what he is. He's a mental aspect kind of guy. So I'm very intrigued by that hire. I love what George Edwards did with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. I think that he's a great addition. And if he has a strong voice in the room, I'm completely on board with that. My favorite hire of the staff, Jim Tomsula.
Yep.
Jim Tomsula.
Okay.
The grunt
nonsense.
Y'all know I'm in the DC area, so as much as I love my Cowboys, I'm also exposed to that team in Washington. Yeah. I'm exposed to that team. That defensive line, bro. Yeah. That defensive line, what he did with them, they are fierce.
You know who I like him?
Fierce group.
I liking him too, KD.
Who's that?
It's another former Washington offensive line coach, Bill Callahan. I liken him to the defensive line Bill Callahan per se.
Yep.
You don't want him as a head coach, but boy, as a defensive or offensive line coach, they are one of the best in the entire NFL.
I immensely look forward to what he can do with the young guys and the veterans. I think that he's the type of guy that even when he gets a veteran that's been in the league for years, like McCoy and Poe and Tank and Tyron Crawford, he has something that he's going to be able to teach those guys. And then the young guys, the Bradley Anae and Neville Gallimore and Tristan Hill, those kind of guys, I'm looking forward to. The reunion with Alden Smith. Bruh, I can't wait to see what Jim Tomsula does with this defensive line. That is clearly, to me, going to be the strength of the Cowboys defense. The secondary is a huge question mark, but if those guys up front can do damage, I think that they can, speed up the clock on the quarterback, shut down the run. I think they're going to be a much better run defense team than what Rod Marinelli had them doing. I think it's going to make all the difference in the world having Jim Tomsula. He's going to be the biggest non-Mike McCarthy hire for the Cowboys coaching staff.
I'll challenge you.
Bones Fossil,
I'll challenge you on that.
Go ahead. My bad.
John Bones Fossil, because we have been horrible on special teams for 10, 15 years. I don't know. Horrible. So when you give me a guy who's been one of the best in league, probably the last decade, it's like, man, listen, if he can sneak out one win because of a fake punt or a fake kick or just disciplined football on special teams, or we actually get, dare I say, as All Nation likes to say, a 25-yard punt return, something.
Just give us that.
Don't play with my emotions. Don't play with my emotions. We don't. we don't deserve. Dog, we don't deserve nice things. We don't. That's what it comes down to. When it comes to special teams, somewhere down the line, all of Cowboys fandom pissed off the special teams football guy.
Joe D.
That's all we see right here.
Joe Camillus. What's his name? Joe Camillus.
Yep.
Fair catch. That's all we see is fair catch.
Listen. What was it? Was it Tavon Austin that they forced him to call it a fair catch or something? And he had like the entire universe and the Red Sea parting in front of him.
He had ball game.
we had Philip Tanner on here, and he actually worked with the special teams the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And he came. It was funny because he came correct. He came clean with it. He said, "You know what? We messed up."
Yeah, we messed up.
He said we messed up on that play, and Tavon did the right thing. Tavon did what we were telling him to do, but we dropped the ball on that. We should have never did that.
Yeah,
I love the fossil.
I love getting Al Harris in there. I love Tomsula, but I love bringing Al Harris in there just because I watched Al Harris, and I know we don't want to just watch. You got to see where he coached because I know he was
right.
With
We don't
Kansas
know.
City.
Right.
He was with KC and things of that nature. But I'm just saying I love his aggressive approach because he still like to coach like he played. So I just like to see how those guys are because Dallas haven't had aggressive corners in a long time.
Speaking of Al Harris, when they made the hire and I was doing some research, trying to find an interesting fact about each of the new coaching hires, Eric Berry's best season was with Al Harris.
Oh wow!
Safety Eric Berry. His best season. Now we know his injury history and all that goes with Eric Berry and the unfulfilled potential. But his best season was when Al Harris had a hand in his coaching. So that to me made me very hopeful for what he could do with Xavier Woods. We see that Xavier Woods has so much potential, and we thought that he was going to turn the corner in 2019, and it didn't really happen. But there's so much potential in that dude. I hope between Al Harris and Mo Linguist, the Texas A&M guy that they brought on, to be the other defensive backs coach. Yeah. And I'm not even sure what the hierarchy is between those guys. Which one's a cornerback, which one's a safety? Right. Are they both? Or whatever that magic is going to be. Yeah. I like that DB coaching room compared to. We all fell in love with Chris Richard because he came from Seattle, but now we see why Seattle let him go.
Listen, I'll tell you what. Al Harris must have some juice that Chris Richard didn't have because Chris Richard preached the same goddamn thing that Al Harris preached. I want big, tall corners, but the Cowboys said, nah, you just work with what we got. Well, Al Harris is on this staff, and we brought in 6'1" Darryl Worley, 6'1" Savion Smith, 6'1" Charles Robinson, 6'1" Diggs, 6'1", all these big dudes.
But wasn't that the weirdest thing that they went ahead and hired Chris Richard and then gave him none of the things that he asked for?
That's why I don't come at him. That's why I don't come at him, fam.
What are you doing? That's true. I mean, they did nothing, and we talked about it like they did nothing in the draft. But
a piece of that is falling on him because he had the opportunity to fight for Warren Thornhill, but he said, you know what, I'm going to relinquish my power and let Tristan Hill.
Do we know that's what happened?
I think we know that's what happened. He said he wanted what's best for the team, and he said, "Hey, if
hold on.
Y'all got fire.
What you say publicly to take one for the team does not mean that that's necessarily what happened. Because, like I said earlier, Will McClay fell on the sword for Taco Charlton. We know that wasn't him. We know that wasn't Will McClay, but he came out and he said, because that's my job, I have to take the lumps as well as but we know Rod Marinelli banged the table for Taco Charlton. We know that wasn't on we know that wasn't on Will McClay. And as a person in Chris Richard's position, what he was put in, and you guys know that if you have head coach aspirations as a black coach, you have to move carefully. You have to move carefully.
There's a hierarchy.
There's a hierarchy, and there's also black coaches don't get forgiven the same way.
It was over KD in Philadelphia. Is that what you're saying when he bumped the coach?
Oh yeah.
Even Jones said we don't do that.
I think you're talking about politics, KD. Behind
I'm more talking about the politics behind it. Okay. You have to move a certain way. We know you're looking at.
But I'm banging that table. I'm saying Warren Thornhill.
He can bang it all he want. He can bang it all he want.
Nobody in the organization.
He ain't got no juice in Dallas.
Yeah, he had no juice.
He clearly didn't have any juice. So Sky, you're right. I won't put it all on him his inability. All on him. I won't do that. Yeah. But there was definitely something that didn't work with what he was preaching to the guys that he did have. You know what I'm saying? Because there was something that did. He was given the terminology, the play calling, and control of the secondary, and they weren't a good secondary. So whether or not you want to talk about, Awuzie, being overdrafted, if that's what you want to consider it. Jordan Lewis not working out. All the guys that they had right before Chris Richard came, because they were drafted in 2017 and he took over in 2018. He had chips to play with. We'll see whether or not those guys perform, whether it be this year in Dallas or future spots with different defense coordinators and different secondary coaches. That'll be the true litmus test on whether or not he was doing a good job of getting those guys together. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work. And now they're trying something new.
To further,
he didn't have a. Go ahead.
To further your point on the situation where they don't get a lot of second, third, fourth chance. I shouldn't say second chances, but they can't screw up. Look what has happened. He publicly screwed up in Dallas, right? Chris Richard does not have a job. And we're acting
not even as a position coach.
Not even a position coach. We're acting like Chris Richard is this horrible coach. He is not a horrible coach. But when you screw up publicly in Dallas, or you have these rifts, because remember, he got into it with the linebackers coach, and all of a sudden the linebackers coach got sick. Right, and who's to say him and Rod Marinelli were on the same page? Because I believe there was too many cooks in the damn kitchen. And who's to say that him and the head coach Jason Garrett saw eye to eye with certain things? I just think it was such, like you said, a weird season in 2019. Not only with the players, but with the coaching, because the lamed up coach and yada yada yada. That maybe the example of what you're saying about coaches, black coaches, not being able to mess up too much is happening. Chris Richard does not have a job.
And also, if you're looking at it from the macro point of view, they brought in the defensive coordinator and didn't give him the defensive coordinator title and kept the old guy. And they kept the old guy.
That was the thing is, don't give me the car and say you still own the car, but you can drive the car, but you got to have it in by 11 o'clock. No, give me the keys. Let me get my own car. And let me run my own car. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down my way. Frank Sinatra. I'm just going to do it my way. That's what I would have done.
They gave him the play calling. They gave him the control of the defense, but they didn't give him the title, and they kept the old boss. Like, that's just a weird dynamic. That the whole
they gave him the Will McClay plan.
Everything. Well, Will McClay is a little different. See, I give the Joneses a pass, because if you run a family business, you're never going to see control to anybody outside of the family. That's the way that you want to run it. I give them a pass on that. A lot of people ask me if they don't give Will McClay the title because he's black. I don't think that's the case when it comes to that. The Jones just aren't going to give anybody outside of the Jones family. It's going to be Stephen Jones next, and then it's going to be the kid that's a quarterback at Arkansas in 15 years. It's going to stay in the family. That's what the Dallas Cowboys are going to do. But when it came to Chris Richard and Rod Marinelli, that was just so weird, man. How do you keep Marinelli? How did you do that?
But you know what? I want to ask you a question though, right quick. Because I think DJ Dog 31 said on here, and I want two things I want to ask you right quick. Because I did a video on Cheeto, and I brought an interview from Clay Mack. He was a defensive back coach, and he was saying Cheeto wanted to do other things at the line of scrimmage, but Chris Richard was saying, no, you cannot do this. This is what you're not going to do. And he was saying, I need to learn some different things because I'm guarding Amari Cooper, and he's showing me all these different things, and I'm not allowed to do this, and I'm not allowed to do that. So I think that may have hindered Cheeto as well. I know what you're saying about the whole scheme of Cheeto, but when you're not allowed to do something as a player and the coach will not allow you to do it, it's going to hurt you, because he's already saying I'm at a disadvantage already because Chris Richard is not allowing me to do it. And another thing, not just with Chris Richard, with him being a black coach, I definitely agree with everything you're saying, but Matt Eberflus was there as well. And one of the reasons why he left was because he said, I don't want to step on Rod Marinelli's toes. And I also feel that he was saying that I'm not going to be the coordinator. I'm not going to be the guy that is the coordinator. So I want to go somewhere where I am the defensive coordinator fully.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it circles back to what we were talking about earlier. Sorry. Lost my train of thought. I had something going on in the background.
What they did was they gave Chris Richard, they said, you can be the cook, right? We want you to make this potato salad, right? But we're going to give you Karen's recipe. They ain't let him have the recipe. They ain't let him cook it up.
Parcells
they
said,
this is how we want you to make.
And now we got raisins in the potato salad.
Exactly. We got raisins in the damn potato salad.
Putting raisins in the potato salad.
And we want to be mad at the chef. Come on, man. And I'm not saying the dude is a Hall of Fame coach or anything like that, because he gets a bad rap because he yells and he screams and everything, but he has a certain style that he coaches, and he wasn't allowed to go get those certain style of players. He had to do it with the guys that he inherited. And if you noticed, the only guy that was able to make those raisins work was the raisin that was already there, Byron Jones.
Yep. And Byron, and you know, Byron, he took a lot of weird flack. You know, if you guys listen to me, the night that Byron Jones got drafted, he was probably the one pick that was down the line. Like, everybody knew when they drafted Elliott, it was Elliott or Ramsey. And, you know, some of the picks that the Cowboys have is clear. But when the Cowboys picked Byron Jones, they were down to like number 27. Yeah. But he was a guy. He was a guy that I wanted. It was Byron Jones or bust. And we thought that Philadelphia was going to take him in the early 20s and all these other spots. Byron Jones was my guy that draft. So I was ecstatic when they got him. And then they played him out of position. They moved him to safety.
He played damn good inside the slot, though, against those tight ends when he played.
Yeah, he did. He did. But to be honest, Byron Jones is great at every single aspect of playing in the secondary, except for catching the football. Like, everything, he does everything else great, but can't catch a football to save his life. Like, was it
this rookie year he went against Gronk? He did pretty good I think it was 2015.
Yeah, he had a couple pass defenses. He had a couple knockaways against Gronk. I remember those plays. Like, I'm seeing it in my head right now. Like,
it was going across. He was going that slant pattern.
And he slotted it back. Yep, I'm seeing it in my head right now.
Ertz too. He shut down Ertz's rookie year.
He's had some incredible games, and the interesting thing that I noticed was when there were games where he didn't get targeted at all. Like, I'm not just talking about, like, I'm just talking, figuratively, literally. There were games where they did not throw at Byron Jones, and they picked on Awuzie and had success on Awuzie.
They picked
the Lions game. I think one of those Lions games they didn't.
The Lions
target.
Game. Yep. Exactly. And that's the game where everybody was like, oh, well, Stafford's making perfect passes. He's dropping it in the bucket. He
just didn't go to his side.
So yeah. But the secondary was a bit of a mess. We hope that the clarity in the coaching staff will affect that. But we just don't. We don't know. We don't know what the talent looks like with this team. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's a question mark.
That's COVID.
That's what I was saying when I was talking about circling back around earlier when we were talking about scheme. You made a great point, James, about the fact that how he was saying that Chris Richard didn't let him play in the techniques that he wanted to. You got to be in a situation that works with what your talents are. That is paramount when it comes to the secondary. So we can sit here and I have jokes, and again, it became a running meme that I was picking on Awuzie because that it just kind of became a thing on Twitter or whatever, but he could very well be just as good as advertised when he came out of Colorado, but he just wasn't with the right scheme. And it could be a whole different thing under, Mo Linguist and Al Harris if given the opportunity. They haven't had a chance to see him, but what they saw on tape, they thought, we're going in a different direction than what this dude is doing.
Safety, let's try.
Right. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but there's a lot of known talent on the Cowboys roster. There's a lot of potential guys that they've invested in that could be a lot better than how they've played in the past. And I think when you have that kind of mixture, it could lead to a really exciting season for the Cowboys defense if they could get it all together.
Question marks over there, but man, it's a lot of talent. But just gotta put it together. Gotta put it together, and I feel like they got room for one more. Whether it be Clowney, whether it be Everson Griffin, whether it be Jamal Adams, there is room for one more to put you over the hump, man. That's just my opinion.
Man, we can talk this Cowboys all night, man.
Oh my gosh, man, it's been phenomenal. Once again, I gotta give everybody a round of applause. We went 2 hours and some change, and we haven't mentioned CeeDee Lamb yet. How did that happen? How? Where else do you get this at, man? This is why you got to come to the Late Night Hype. This is why you got to subscribe to KD Drummond, because we all can give you this detailed talk that you're not going to find on the big networks. And no knock to the big networks.
No, you're not.
They ain't talking about all this over here, man. But before we let you go, I got to get your take on the CeeDee Lamb thing. I asked everybody this right here. kind of give me the build up you had as that pick was falling and dropping and what you were thinking, because we did a draft show and we were like ignoring it for a little bit, but then around about pick 10, pick 11, pick 12, we're like, guys, is this really happening right now?
Yep.
I
was going through pick by pick as we dropped down. Like you said, around 10, you start thinking, man, the wide receivers haven't really gone. That could kind of happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to be Chason. I hope Chason's there. That was everybody's fear going into the draft. It was, can Chason get past Atlanta? That was everybody's fear. Atlanta was at 16. They obviously, they let Beasley go. So it was an obvious need for them too. And you were just sitting there thinking, if he can get past there. And then Lamb is just still sitting on the board. And you're like, okay, so San Francisco, I think Tampa made the swap. And you're like, okay, well, they didn't trade up for a wide receiver. They traded up for Kinlaw. Okay, so you start doing the list. You have your short list of all the players that you say, okay, if they get Kinlaw, if they get Chason, if they get Lamb, I'm ecstatic. Right. And each of those guys, and then Kinlaw came off the board to San Francisco, and you were like, okay, well, they still have the 2. And then you got down and you're like, you get down to Atlanta, the pick before Atlanta.
Denver. They took the receiver. And
Denver took
Judy.
the other. Denver took Judy.
Right.
Denver took Judy. And then you're like, okay, this could actually happen.
Yeah.
So whoever picked before Atlanta didn't take either Lamb or was it Denver that was right before Atlanta?
I believe it was
Denver was right before Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that point, okay, yeah, you're right. So at that point, when they got down to the last 3 picks before the Cowboys, you knew that they were going to get one of those guys. They were going to get the guy that you thought that you were targeting for the last 2 weeks, Chason, or you were going to get one of the 2 receivers that you had no idea they had any chance at. So you were already ecstatic, but everybody really wanted it to be Lamb. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody.
You really wanted it to be Lamb. And when
I'm still team defense, but go ahead.
But listen, but then Atlanta made the pick, and I don't even remember who Atlanta took. They took the corner. They took the corner. They took the corner who was the fear factor for Cowboys fans.
Right.
Everybody was
please don't get Terrell.
Please don't take Terrell. Yeah. And Atlanta took him on the board, and you were like, they got choice. Not only are they going to get one of these guys, but they have a choice which one they want.
But KD, I was scared of that choice. I was scared because Chase.
You were scared that they were going to take Chase on.
Yes.
Yeah. Because listen, they were building him up. They had DeMarcus Ware out there talking about, I see Chase on as the next me. All of those things. The Cowboys are a great marketing team, and I thoroughly believe that they put those feelers out there. I know, I don't have the contacts within the organization, but I know enough people that do have those contacts that they start to hear these sorts of things. And I know how the Cowboys like to send out the feelers through certain members of the media. I know which media members the Cowboys drop information to when they want to get the public behind a certain move that they're going to make. I know which guys those are. And every one of those guys was doing the chase on thing. The Cowboys were putting it out there to prepare everybody, get the feelers, let everybody know that Chase
the next DeMarcus Ware, all of that. Yeah, I remember
all of that. They were doing all of that. Chason was going to be the guy. They had no clue Lamb was going to drop to them, and so the fear was having both of them in front of them. Do you want 40 burgers or do you want sacks? And damn it, they chose right.
They chose 40 burgers.
Finally,
40 points on the board. Put the points on the board. I can't wait to see. And I wrote an article, the Cowboys have Amari Cooper. They signed him for the 5-year deal, $100 million, exactly what I predicted. Very proud of that one. $20 million a year. Weird. They have an out. They have an out after 2 years.
Yeah, it's a 2-year deal.
They got to pretty much with everybody.
It's a 2-year deal. They have Gallup, free agent, because rookie contract, 4 years, free agent the same year. So they can either keep Cooper on his contract or they can cut him, pay Gallup, and then they have another 3 years of control of whichever of those 2 guys plus Lamb, and then you can recycle and just keep drafting wide receivers and keep this party going.
Man. You're
the Cowboys, they are in a perfect position to be a juggernaut.
Yeah,
if they would just freaking sign Dak Prescott.
Ooh, how much money will it free up? Just let the nation know. How much money?
Yeah. Because
will that free up?
Yeah, please elaborate. Now we don't really know, but Theoretically speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, the way the salary cap works is that when you're on a franchise tag, you don't have multiple years to sign to spread out the cap hit for. You pay that much money in that 1 year. So he signed the tender. $31.4 million is how much he costs against the cap right now. If they were to sign him to, let's say, what he's looking for, the 4-year deal at, let's say, $36 million a year, it's not going to be a $35 million cap hit. The cap hit is actually going to go down from the $31 million because a lot of that money, and we don't know how much, but in the past, they've put most of the year one money in a signing bonus. And why that matters is this. A base salary goes on the cap for whatever year you pay the base salary. But even though they're going to pay him the signing bonus in 2020, theoretically, if they sign him to the long-term contract, they pay him the money now, but the cap hit is then spread out over up to 5 years of the contract. So if it's a 5-year contract, you spread, let's say they gave him a $50 million signing bonus. The salary cap hit from the bonus isn't $50 million in year one. It's $10 million in year one, $10 million in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So you could easily give him $50 million right now, spread it out over 5 years. Let's say it's a 5-year deal just for easy math, $10 million a year, and give him a $1 million base salary. Dak Prescott makes $51 million in cash this year, but he only counts $11 million against the 2020 cap. So you've just given him $20 million more than you were going to give him. You're going to give him $31 million. You actually gave him $51 million, but it's actually going to save $20 million off of this year's cap.
$20 million. Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh, now look, now there's more to it, because what that means is that when you pay him the big salary in year 2 and you're giving him $35 million base salary in year 2, you now on top of that have another $10 million from that signing bonus that's prorated. So even though he's only going to make $35 million in cash in year 2, he's now hitting your cap for $45 million instead, because you have that signing bonus. So it's a balancing act of when the money is available. Now, the thing people talk about is dead money, and we don't want dead money if you cut the guy and all that kind of stuff. You're paying for guys. You're not cutting Dak, first of all. You're paying for guys that aren't on your roster anymore. But here's how it works. In a normal year, the salary cap goes up every year. So say you have $10 million in 2020 and the cap is $200 million. But then you have the same amount and you can push it off to 2021. But the cap in 2021 is $225 million. That $10 million that was in 2020 that's now moved to 2021 takes up a smaller percentage of that year's cap. So pushing that money off into the future when the cap theoretically keeps going up means that you're actually getting more bang for your buck by pushing off. That's why when the Cowboys do these restructures, they're not only just saving money off of the cap, they're lessening the impact of the same amount of money. They have the same cluster of money that they've paid this guy. The deal is worth $100 million. But if you're taking a majority of the cap hit in a year where the cap is smaller, then you're doing more damage to your cap compared to if you push it off into the future where you have a higher cap. So all of those sorts of things come into play when you're talking about giving Dak Prescott a long-term deal, and why the Cowboys want to give him 5 years or 6 years, because they're able to do all of those gains with the salary cap that they can't do if they give him a 3 or 4 year deal. If they sign him to a signing bonus for 3 years, then Dak Prescott, then you can only spread out that $50 million hit over the 3 years instead of the 5 years, because you can't go when you're doing the amortization, you can't go beyond the total length of the contract. So all of that comes into play, and that's really the sticking point and why Dak isn't signed right now. The Cowboys want to have the flexibility to spread that big cap hit over the duration of what they're used to. They give 5 years. If they give a 6-year contract, they do a restructure bonus in the second year. So you have 2 cheap years as far as the cap. All of those sorts of things is really how the Cowboys like to do their business. But Dak Prescott ain't going for it. He's like, why would I do that for y'all if you're not going to give me the $45 million that I know that I would get on the open market in 2022. So that's what the whole balance is right now. People talk about it's just smart business on Dak's part not to sign that long-term deal. And it's smart business on the Cowboys' part to want to sign him to a long-term deal and get those savings. But they're going to lose. There's no way that the Cowboys can win this battle. No matter what happens, if the Cowboys flop next year, are they moving on from Dak Prescott? No. Is he going to be any cheaper? No.
And like I said,
so they're not going to win.
Do you want him to go into the season on this franchise tag with this offense?
Hey, can you do me a favor, Skywalker? Drop one of the clues bombs for KD.
Oh, I was about to drop this one. I got one better for you. I got one better for you.
Are you not entertained?
He just
came with
dropped
that
some
fire. He just dropped some
bombs.
glue.
I got you though.
Drop some glue. There you go.
I got
That
you,
blew
man.
bombs on that
my
one.
Goodness.
Hey,
People need to
listen.
hear that, KD, because so many people don't know this, what you're saying, and they need to hear this because the first thing they hear when you hear a number of 35 million, oh, Dak is greedy and blah, 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 blah. You need to hear the whole damn thing.
Listen.
Like you said, Dallas, you better do it now because if Dak goes out there with Mike McCarthy and he did that with Jason Garrett and he comes in with Mike McCarthy, he gonna ball out again and you're really gonna pay some bread.
Listen, if Dak hits 4,500 yards passing, my prediction at the beginning of the offseason of 2019, February 2019. Excuse me.
You spit all them flames, dog.
Yeah, I know.
You're
Right?
the flame. That boy's the fire spitter over there.
Man. Take a breath.
I came out
Get some water, fam.
Yeah. I came out with a prediction in February 2019 that the Cowboys should pay Dak Prescott $29 million a year. And people were pissed.
I remember that.
They were pissed. $29 million a year. I got cursed out. I mean, people cursed me out about spending Jerry Jones's money. Like, imagine that. I'm trying to spend Jerry Jones's money and y'all mad at me. But at the time, people were saying he's a $20 million quarterback. Maybe 23. The top of the market, people were saying were 23, $24 million. I had people that run in my circle of people that I respect their cap ideas. You know, there's a group of us that discuss the cap regularly offline. We don't even put most of the stuff we talk about on Twitter. They were saying $26 million was going to be the number. I said, nah, that's a $29 million man. And people balked. The Cowboys would have loved to have Dak Prescott.
Oh my gosh!
Right now,
my goodness.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that?
Backflips right now. They'd be like, we did a great deal.
Hey,
if they had signed,
I can go all the way back. I can go all the way back, like the first time with D-Law and when they franchise tagged him twice. He could have been a 14 million guy or 12, whatever, 13. But
they talked about it. They know you're exactly right. His representative talked about, like, I believe he actually said the amount that they would have accepted if they had made the offer, and it was somewhere much less than what they're paying him right now. So the Cowboys have always done this thing. They keep losing. Like all of these situations, the Cowboys, they structure contracts great, but unless the player is taking a hometown discount like what Collins did or what Jaylon Smith did, the Cowboys keep losing these things. They lost Tank, they lost Elliott, and they're going to lose Dak. Like those are the three biggest contracts that they're dealing with in the recent memory, and they lost all of them. They've already lost Prescott. Now, I will say this. My good friend Joey Ikes pointed out the fact that when it comes to, there's more to it than just a salary cap.
True.
The Cowboys are obviously, and NFL teams in general, obviously invest the money. The amount of interest that they've made on what they will pay Dak Prescott by investing it at whatever the normal yield is for investments actually outweighs how much more they're going to have to pay him. So while we look at it from the point of view of, okay, well, you could have signed him for much cheaper, not signing him, investing that money, getting whatever the average rate of yield is, the Cowboys have actually made more money than what they'll end up spending in the difference of waiting to pay him the money. So if in a strictly money sense, we always operate, and I'm as guilty as anybody, we operate under the guise of the salary cap and how much money you're saving against the cap. But as far as actual dollars and cents, you could take that money, invest it, and you've now made all the difference of what you're going to end up paying Prescott to begin with. And that includes going back to the beginning of the offseason. Why haven't they signed Dak yet? Well, that money that they haven't paid him and had to put in escrow for his contract, they've invested that money and they've turned around and they flipped that. And so if you make $8 million
right there,
if you make $8 million in actual cash off that, I'm just speculating, $8 million off of that $35 million that you haven't given him yet, you've made $8 million investing that, then now you give him $37 million and you've made $6 million. So there's a lot more into it than what we discuss in the realm of wise decisions as far as the salary cap goes.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. if this was Jerry Jones, really, in my opinion, running this the personnel cap stuff, this thing would have been signed long time ago.
That's Steven saying no.
And honestly, and KD, this is one of the things I've been saying over the last few years. I have a love-hate relationship with Steven Jones when it comes to managing the cap, because on one hand, he's done a phenomenal job. He's a cap wizard. The contracts are not bad contracts, and we have cap room to do things, and our future cap looks good. Many people keep saying we were going to be in cap hell. No, we're not. I think he's managing the cap pretty well. On the other hand, there's times where I believe he is doing this, right? He's being difficult for no reason, or we want him to go get an Everson Griffin or ET or whomever, and he's like, no, we're going to save our coins to pay our own. Well, on one hand, you say that, and then on the other hand, we have to. Your own has to fight. Yeah. Your own literally has to fight you, and then you negotiate through the media. So it's like he just makes my head explode, man.
Hey, the time when the Honey Badger was out there on the market,
$7 million.
They sit there and say, we're going to go on vacation because we don't believe in free agent signing. You sign a C player like a B player, and you sign a B player like an A player. So there's really no room for going out there signing a free agent player. And I'm sitting there like, no. Look at the last teams that won the Super
too much,
Bowl.
man. They think too much. Honey Badger was on the Texans for $7 million, and you mean to tell me you thought that Jeff Heath was okay to run out there and not Honey Badger? That, to me, that's thinking you're doing too much. That's that stuff you saying. The yield and this and that. Dog, just go get the goddamn guy that can play football.
I think it's also because they be looking at that Patriot way and how they're trying to be so damn stern on their contracts.
Right.
You're
Patriots
trying to be all
Darrell
tough.
Revis.
But you know what I'm saying. But you know what I'm saying, Sky. You know how they try to be all tough guyish. And so I think Stephen Jones is like, we're following their model, so I'm going to be a tough guy, and you're not going to get it, and we can do it like this way. Like you said, motherfucker, go get that motherfucker so we can get a championship.
Come on,
stop playing.
It's been 25 years, so it don't act like we've been winning.
A lot of people say they can't wait. I mean, it's callous. But people say they can't wait until Jerry cedes control. Let's put it in those terms.
Them Jones ain't never giving it up, and Stephen said it.
No, but people are looking forward to it being out of Jerry's control, and I'm like, be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
It's already out.
It's gonna get real tight wadish up in that.
Listen, because there's still Stephen Jones has been in control of the team, for many years, but there's still a Jerry factor to it.
Yeah.
I worry about what it looks like when there's not the let's do it so that Jerry can see a championship before the end of his run.
Do we turn into the cheap Packers, right? Like where the Packers don't want to spend out a single dime, right?
Not a dime.
That's what McCarthy was complaining about over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a harrowing thought that the things that people are hoping for to be the reason for change may not work the way that a lot of people expect it to.
You better wisen up. I mean, when I say wisen up, I mean get with the times, man. Aggressive teams are the guys that are either winning the Super Bowl or putting themselves in position to win the Super Bowl. Get aggressive. That complacent shit you were with Jason Garrett, that has to be out the window. Hopefully McCarthy can bring a little bit of change, man.
How you doing, guys?
I don't want to hear that shit.
Oh my God, this has been unbelievable. I really hope I can get this
you brought the fire, big dog.
Man,
you brought the fire, big dog. I love listening to everything you was talking about.
Before we all go, drop the bomb that you dropped on us before the show about your future in regards to the airwaves.
Well, before I do that, let me first say what I told you guys when we got on the air. I am highly appreciative of what you guys are doing in this space. This is a phenomenal station, channel, however you want to phrase it. Your show is outstanding. You guys' chemistry is awesome. I'm appreciative of what you guys are doing in this space. Appreciative very heavily.
Thank you.
As far as my personal move is going, I would love to announce to the people out there who have been asking for the last several months, year, whatever the case may be, Catch This Fade is returning to the airwaves in July.
Yeah.
July.
Myself and my partner in crime, Patrick Walker, will be reconvening the podcast. I will continue to dig in his shit. and embarrass him
Y'all used to
every
go.
episode.
Y'all think me
Every
and
episode.
Big Game go ham? Go listen to some past Catch This Fade.
Yeah,
stuff,
they like I said, we the backups, they the starters.
Listen. We joke about it all the time, but me and Pat are simpatico on so many things. That's why we fight the way that we do. We are literally brothers on the microphone. So you guys are in for a great ride. We have a couple of things that we're going to try to do with the show that should be pretty interesting. So be on the lookout. If you're on Twitter, you can follow me at KD Drummond NFL. Obviously, the website at the Cowboys Wire. We're going to have some stuff coming soon. And I actually have a non-sports related project that's getting ready to kick off in July as well that I've been working on. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not ready to quite reveal what that is, but just a little bit of teaser. To be on the lookout. I'll obviously talk about it when it happens on Twitter. So, some moves trying to be made. But again, I'm proud of you guys in this show right here, man. This has been phenomenal. I've never, ever been on anybody's podcast, video, chat, whatever, for 2.5 hours
straight,
and it's been nothing. It's been nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's been nothing, which speaks to you guys as hosts and the camaraderie and chemistry that you have that make it so easy to just sit here and talk like that. It's a wonderful show, man. Congrats to you guys on this.
Thank you, man.
Hey man, you give me chills, Katie. We every after every show, somebody gives us like a good shout out like that. But so we're definitely gonna cut this. But I just want to, behalf just for myself and maybe for the guys, man. That's just really, you understand how much that really means to me, and I'm sure it means to the guys.
Absolutely.
That because like I said, I've been following you for a long time. I've been following Patrick. Patrick's been on a couple of my shows, and I've looked up to you guys for a very long time since I got into this business. Like, you were one of the guys that I've been wanting to try to reach out to you because I just watched how you guys bring professionalism, but y'all funny as shit though.
Yeah.
And it's and how y'all be cutting people is funny, and I just respect everything about it. For you to actually be on our podcast like Patrick was, and say what you said is just really amazing and very humbling. I'm just really grateful for that.
Yeah, Katie,
man.
Just to echo off of what Big Game James is saying is, we don't like the Cowboys. We love them. And when I wake up early in the morning, I know 1,000 people can contest to this too. Before I even I say my prayers, before I get out of the bed to wash my face and brush my teeth, I pull up Twitter, I pull up Google, and I check the Dallas Cowboys information to see what's going on. I know some other people do the exact same thing, and it been many of times. KD Drummond, KD, Cowboys Wire, KD.
Man, listen,
it's getting posted on my Big Game James Facebook page. All your stuff be on there.
All your stuff,
all your articles,
all your stuff, man.
When Cowboys
get a chance to speak,
when Cowboys crunch time was when I didn't see it on my thing anymore, I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hey, what happened?
What's going on here? We're catching my face. I really do enjoy listening to y'all because not only, like you said, are you guys entertaining, but you're very informative and you bring a different aspect to fandom and insider and journalism that we don't really get all the time, right? Because it's a lot of yellow journalism right now, and you're familiar with that
fake ass journism out there.
Right, but I would try to use the professional one. But yes, there's a lot of fake ass journalism.
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of that, but I don't get that with you guys. I never did. And we respect it a whole lot. So, and I, like he said, this show and what we do, I mean, speaking just like what James said, I watch from BTB and from listening to y'all, I'm like, man, this is what I want to do. How do I do it? And to hear your story, how it started, man, that's motivation. Because I was in the same fan post. You can go check. I got tons of fan posts in there. And I'm like, I just want somebody to be like, hey, man, you want to come write for us? And then that's kind of how it really did start. But, man, we appreciate everything you've done and everything you're going to be doing and being on this show. And hopefully this ain't the last time because.
No.
Like I say, man, we check y'all out, man. And for me to speak to you is just fantastic. And on top of that, I read y'all stuff and then I go read the DallasCowboys.com because I know it's going to be a little PC. But I know I'm gonna get the good stuff from you guys. You know?
Hey.
And no shot at the Dallas.com. You know,
Yeah, I mean
they
have a lane that they have to operate in. You know what I'm saying? That's how.
Hey, I don't give a hell. I was like,
but look. But look. Speaking of that, I don't mean to hold you guys on too long.
no, you ain't holding us.
Nah,
you know what I'm saying?
Good.
The lane that I'm afforded to be in, being on the blog side and not having access to the team. Real story. The Cowboys don't allow bloggers to be part of their media scrums. They don't allow you to get press credentials and all that kind of stuff. You have to be with a major organization before you did that. So coming up the way that I did, of being strictly on the fan side, but learning everything that I could about the game, about the draft, about the salary cap, and all of those sorts of things that I sat there and taught myself. Not taught myself. I had some great mentors that helped me out along the way. But I put the work in myself to get myself in this position. But seeing how other people have to move, the people that are on the radio, the people that, have to stand in front of them, I'm afforded the luxury of not having to worry about any of that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, and I'll big up my guy. That's what makes Patrick's rise so incredible.
Oh, yeah.
So great to see.
Yes.
Patrick came from where I came from, and now he has the ticket. You know what I'm saying? Now he's in that lane. And he's thriving, and he's showing that the way that we do it is really what the people want to have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's what the people want out of their coverage. He doesn't, kowtow. He doesn't kiss anybody's ass or anything like that. He gives it straight up, but in the way that we know how it's being official and real about how he approaches the way that he does what everybody else has already been doing. And it's a breath of fresh air. The media market is changing. Everything about the way that sports and news are covered is changing. And to see the lane that we can now create when not just we have control of our own product, but to do it in these ways. I'm like you said, I came from the fan pages. I run a site for USA Today Network. Patrick's with CBS Sports. Like,
motivation, man.
Bruh. You know what I'm saying? Like that I'm so proud of us. And so when I tell you that I love what y'all are doing here, trust me that I'm speaking in that vein. I'm speaking in that vein. Please keep doing what y'all are doing. Don't let this fall in any way, shape, or form. Keep doing this. Okay?
Sir.
Got you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The word. That was the spoken word. Yeah. Amen. Hallelujah.
That's another clue bomb.
That's a clue bomb.
Hey, anything you want to plug before you get up out of here?
Nah, man, like I said, just be on the lookout for this move that I'm about to make that's actually going to be outside of sports. I'm diving into something that's also close to my heart. Not as close to the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are kind of, we're not in a divorce.
Y'all separated. Y'all not talking.
We're sleeping in different beds until Jerry Jones makes a statement. I
see what you did there.
It's the last several years have been a little bit bumpy for the way that I normally show affection for this organization. But I mean, we all came from the same place. I'm from DC. I used to watch the Cowboys on my mom's kitchen TV when they played on the Baltimore stations. If you're in DC, you used to get the fuzzy Baltimore stations on the TV. And so the squiggly lines, I used to be like this, trying to make out Emmitt Smith. You know what I'm saying? So I go all the way back in this fandom, and I would love to see them rise again. But in the current climate that we're in, I would love to see them be leaders. The Cowboys organization is supposed to be leading the pack. And I would really just love to see them do that on this front, man. So hopefully we'll get some of those moves, and I can return to being 100% committed. As you see behind me on my wall, I don't have anything Cowboys up. This is like the first time in a long time that I haven't done that. But I'm hoping that they give me a reason to restore that pride. It has nothing to do with their performance on the field. I want to see them be I want them to be the leaders that they're supposed to be in this sport, in this world. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully it gets back to that. Yeah, hopefully it gets back to that. And we can be proud of them, not just with what they do on the field, but who they are as an organization. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Well spoken.
Unbelievable stuff. Y'all know the drill, right? If I don't press this button, we won't.
You know,
go.
you hear that music, you know what the hell about to happen. Yeah.
That means it's time to go, KD.
And we ain't coming back. We all leaving.
Oh no, we out for the night, fam.
We all leaving.
Man. Hey, appreciate you guys. All the donations, all the new members, all the new subscribers. KD
Yeah, we love
Drummond
you.
and Cowboys Wire. Check him out on behalf of me, Silver Blue Nation, Law Nation. Y'all have a good night. We out.
Peace.